Chapter 284. Two majestic nightmare beasts pulled an exquisite and luxurious carriage along the smooth and tidy road outside Deep Earth City, heading straight to the capital of the largest trading kingdom in the east. Although the Eastern Kingdom was vast, the nightmare beasts traveled like flying. In less than half a day, they could cross thousands of miles to reach the capital. At that time, the people in the carriage would make their final preparations and go straight to the most famous historical site in the Western continent. Generally speaking, even in the relatively affluent eastern part of the Western continent, such a carriage was rare. The two nightmare beasts pulling the carriage were extraordinary. As for the wheels that were vaguely surrounded by lightning, it showed that the owner's life experience was extraordinary. Usually, only the city masters of those big cities could own such a carriage. Even though the carriage was light and did not have any guards accompanying it, there were very few people who dared to try and intercept it as it traveled through the wilderness. The eastern part of the Western continent, because of its abundance of resources and prosperous trade, was much better than the western part, and the crackdown on crime was also more severe. In particular, the governors of the various countries and cities were in close contact with each other. Once they offended a high-ranking official, they would become a street rat wherever they went. Wang Lu and his team did not hesitate to buy the carriage in order to avoid trouble. However, perhaps it was really destined that the road to happiness was strewn with setbacks. Shortly after the carriage left Deep Earth City, they encountered a group of robbers. The strength of the robbers who dared to attack the carriage pulled by the nightmare beasts was naturally extraordinary. Before the people in the carriage could react, the sky suddenly turned blood red, and the smooth road ahead was lost in a red mist. In the sky, 10 hazy silhouettes floated quietly, looking down from above. The next moment, lightning flashed and thunder roared. The blood-colored lightning fell from the sky and bombarded the roof of the carriage. The strange beast statue on the roof collapsed into pieces, and at the same time, the body of the carriage violently shook. Inside the carriage, Wang Lu and the others were surprised. This ambush was fast and ruthless. The blood-colored lightning strike destroyed the protective statue on the carriage. Its power was not inferior to, well, if converted to 9 regions standard, it was the full power strike of Taoist Master King Pil, Xiao Ming. Although the carriage was luxurious, it was not a chariot. There were only 3 protective statues on the roof, and they could not be regenerated. Wang Lu raised his head and saw that not only did the thunderclouds above his head not dissipate, they were even denser. After the blood-colored thunderbolts struck down, blood rain began to fall, polluting everything in the world. Even if one only looked at this method, one could see that it was brilliant. It was hard to imagine that they had met random robbers. Wang Lu was surprised. "Aya, is this another enemy you made 100 years ago? Just how many outrageous things did you do in the past for you to have so many enemies?" "My enemies are everywhere on the sea and on the land." Aya was also very surprised. Being questioned by Wang Lu, she was tongue-tied for a long time before she said, "It wasn't me. It's you. Don't quibble. If it wasn't you, could it be my enemy?" Aya found it hard to argue. "But, I don't even know those people. That's because you killed their parents in the past, and now their children and grandchildren have come to seek revenge." Aya was stunned, and then she actually began to ponder. In the past, when she went on expeditions in all directions, even though the direction of the horse's hooves were all righteous, she had indeed killed a lot of people. Could it be that? That's not right. My country is far away in the west, so how could there be someone who would travel thousands of miles to ambush me and seek revenge? It's really not me. Seeing that Aya was really angry, Wang Lu waved his hand. "Forget it, no matter if it's me or not, in any case, they have come to my door, so I can't just not fight back. Aya, save your favorable impression, so that you can see how amazing I am when I go out." With that, Wang Lu beckoned Lu Li and the others out of the carriage. At this time, the 3rd statue has been broken by the blood-colored thunderbolt, and the 4th thunderbolt was brewing, which could fall at any time. Wang Lu stepped out against the rain of blood outside the carriage. However, just as he took a step, he felt his body suddenly sank. A void core in his jade mansion violently shook, as if it was about to fall apart. "What?" At the same time, Lu Li, who followed closely behind, also exclaimed, "My magical power is a bit disobedient." "This is the law suppression?" Aya, who was at the back of the team, was the most sensitive. She immediately said, These people used a special method to stimulate the law of the Western continent to fully suppress you. They are deliberately targeting the cultivators of 9 regions. Aya was indeed worthy to be the former king. Her reaction was fast and accurate. In just one sentence, she revealed the truth. In fact, this group of robbers was indeed targeting the cultivators of 9 regions. Just as Aya revealed the truth, a person in the sky was surprised. There's actually a local? That person spoke in the common language of the eastern continent of the western continent. Before coming here, Wang Lu and the others had done their homework, so they could understand it. Another person in the sky said, "Humph, so what if they're local? Since they're with the yellow-skinned monkey, they're obviously not good people. They don't seem to have any strength, so we can just kill them. Hee, this time, we've caught a big fish. These people are not strong, but they're rich. We're going to get rich." Killing these yellow-skinned monkeys is really a shortcut to get rich. Although their strength is good, as long as we use this blood-stained scroll, we can make them reveal their true colors. Hee, those 500 magic coins are really not a loss. In just a few words, Wang Lu wrinkled his brows. Someone in the Western continent was specifically targeting the cultivators of 9 regions? They even developed this blood-stained scroll, which stimulated the law of the Western continent to suppress them. This kind of suppression didn't matter to the local people of Western continent, but it was very fatal to the people of 9 regions. Even those Taoist masters of the King Pill realm, when the blood-stained scroll stimulated the law of the Western continent, would lose their Tao heart and lose their cultivation base. Perhaps, only those old monsters with Yuanying stage or even deity stage could ignore the law and still exert their strength. However, nowadays, the cultivators from 9 regions who came to Western continent were mostly King Pill realm cultivators. Except for the Dream Team led by Feng Yin Taoist Master, most of the teams formed by various sects were 1 or 2 Yuanying stage cultivators with more than 10 King Pill realm cultivators. Thus, when encountering this blood-stained scroll, 9 out of 10 of them would not be able to resist. Wang Lu couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The Western continent was indeed full of capable people. He had never heard of this blood-stained scroll before. Obviously, after a large number of 9 regions cultivators entered the Western continent, the genius alchemists of the Western continent developed it and spread it everywhere. 500 magic coins was indeed not expensive. According to the same purchasing power, it could be converted into 500 spirit stones. Compared to the harvest of killing a group of 9 regions cultivators, it was simply a drop in the bucket, extremely cheap. The strength of the 10 people in the sky was not weak. According to the standard of the Western continent, although they had different professions, they were all high-order professions such as sword master, spirit master, and so on. In 9 regions, they were between Shudon stage and King Pill realm cultivators. 10 people together, coupled with the blood-stained scroll that scattered the opponent's cultivation base, not to mention Wang Lu's team. Even if there was a Yuanying stage elder leading the team, with more than 10 King Pill realm cultivators here, they would still die. "Do it!" The person in the sky shouted and swooped down with a pair of pale golden wings on his back. That was the captain of this group of adventurers, a great sword master, who was best at charging and breaking through enemy lines. Seeing that their captain had made his move, several of his teammates also followed suit. For a time, it was as if a dark cloud covered the sky. Their power was astonishing. Generally, the 9 regions cultivators team would immediately scatter under their charge, and then it would be a one-sided massacre. However, this time they really found the wrong person. Wang Lu and Lu Li were indeed temporarily troubled by the blood-stained scroll, but there was still a real killer in their team. "Ridiculous, you want to rely on numbers? I'm going to close the door and release the dog. Hey, eat him for me." As soon as Wang Lu's voice fell, a thunderous roar exploded, and a giant gray shadow suddenly expanded. 2 rows of blade-like teeth flashed in front of everyone's eyes. The next moment, the robbers who swooped down suddenly felt that there seemed to be one less person next to them. They looked at each other, and a moment later, their hearts were filled with horror. Captain? The momentum of the robbers' dive came to an abrupt halt. One by one, the robbers stopped their momentum and hovered in mid-air. This time, there were 6 people who swooped down, and all of them were close combat professions. Originally, the victory was already in their grasp, but just now, the gray shadow flashed, and the captain who rushed at the front had disappeared. When they looked again, they saw on the ground, a giant dog with a body as strong as an elephant was chewing something. Blood and minced meat continued to overflow from the gap between its teeth and flowed to the ground. A moment later, that giant dog spat out a ball-like thing, which was the head of the captain who died with a remaining grievance. Captain? Several people's eyes widened in anger, as if their eye sockets were about to tear. As a great swordmaster-level captain, he had always been an invincible meat grinder in close combat. Unexpectedly at this moment, he was swallowed by that strange beast without even struggling. Damn it, whether it was these yellow-skinned monkeys of 9 regions, or their spirit beasts and spirit pets, under the blood-stained scroll, their cultivation base should have been scattered, and they should have no resistance at all. However, they didn't know that this raging evil beast was the condensation of the Western continent's natural law. Under the blood-stained scroll, its strength would only be stronger. And Fenrir was best at close combat. According to legend, even the gods did not dare to be too close to Fenrir. While the several swordmasters and berserkers who specialized in close combat were still in shock, that giant dog had already digested the captain's body. It grinned, suddenly pounced into the air, and once again began to fight. Its speed was so fast that people were completely unable to react. Its big mouth opened and closed, and a person was swallowed whole, leaving no room for resistance. Several close combat professions tried to fight back, but their weapons hit the thick fur, but they were completely powerless. It was a one-sided massacre. Ah! Quickly help! A swordmaster screamed and roared for help. Just now, he was too late to dodge, and his arm was bitten off by that evil dog. He knew that this evil dog was absolutely invincible in close combat. At this time, only the magician, priest, mage, and other long-range professions in the sky could barely cope with it. The long-range professions naturally would not just stand by and watch. Each of them displayed their magical abilities. Some condensed the blood-colored thunder in the sky, some drew their bows and shot arrows with divine power, and some recited hymns to summon the wrath of the gods. If these long-range professions focused their fire, even if Quanzhou Hua was an immortal beast, it would not be able to withstand it. After all, its cultivation time was too short. However, at this time, a clear woman's voice leisurely floated through his mind. Although the swordmaster did not understand the language used by the woman, he inexplicably understood her meaning. Yes, I have understood the law of this land. The woman in white floated forward and stretched out her hand to prop up a thick brown earth light, which isolated all the attacks from the sky. The eyes of Mother Earth are watching us. The next moment, the woman flipped her other hand and aimed at the sky. In the palm of her hand, the roaring thunder symbolizing destruction rolled and jumped. The power of the elements will destroy you. Chapter 285. An angry roar of thunder bloomed from Bai Shishuan's hand, which turned into a raging storm that pierced the sky. The 4 long-range professions in the sky were all shrouded in lightning. The strength of those 4 long-range professions was not weak, but no one expected that this group of Eastern cultivators, under the suppression of the blood-stained scroll, still had the strength to resist. Therefore, they didn't do too much protection and put all of their power into the attack. At this time, they were suddenly counterattacked, completely caught off guard. Moreover, what shocked them even more was Bai Shishuan's counterattack. That was by no means the means of any Eastern cultivator. These days, they have intercepted and killed some Eastern adventurers, and some won and some lost. However, in any case, they had already seen the means of Eastern cultivators, which was completely different from the mystical power of the Western continent. Among them, although there was no lack of means to summon lightning, it was absolutely not like now, where the lightning storm was filled with a strong elemental force. This elemental taste was clearly, damn it, how could it be an elemental shaman? Moreover, it's a high-level shaman. The magician angrily clenched his wand. The magical pool in his body crazily poured out power to support a thick and plain insulating shield. At the risk of damaging his magical pool, he was finally able to isolate all of the lightning energy outside. However, his companion was not so lucky. The archer has no self-defense ability. In the face of the elemental force, the only thing he could rely on was the magician and priest. However, they were too busy to take care of the archer. Unprepared, he could only try his best to flap the wings on his back, trying to retreat. However, just as he flapped his wings, his torso was pierced by the electric current, and he screamed and fell down. The other mage also didn't escape. She was good at summoning and needed time, but she was caught off guard and lacked the time. While the magician and priest were busy with other things, The magic item she carried was not enough to resist by Xueqi's lightning storm. After struggling for a moment, the magic item shattered with a loud bang. The mage herself was also engulfed by the lightning. "AKA save me!" Accompanied by a scream, the mage turned into ashes. AKA, who was called out by her before she died, was holding his wand, trying to alleviate the shock of the magical pool. He didn't even dare to say half a word, for fear that he would not be able to suppress the backlash and explode his magical pool. However, as one of the only 2 members in the team who could buff and protect his teammates, he didn't help, which worsened the situation. By the time the lightning storm subsided, more than half of the 10-man adventurer team had died. Magician Akka struggled to stay in the air. He felt dizzy and could not believe what he was seeing. Although the 10 of them didn't dare to say that they were influential figures in the Western continent, they were still accustomed to the wind and waves. A few years ago, they even dared to go to the Dragon Cave to explore for treasures. Unexpectedly, they were defeated here. However, at least I'm still alive. The mage Akka composed himself and looked at the priest who believed in the holy light beside him. The 2 of them were the only ones in the team who still had strength left and were not completely trapped in the battle. They looked at each other and had the same thought. If we want to escape, now is the time. Years of tacit understanding made it unnecessary for them to speak more. The priest immediately overdrew his faith and released 2 holy shields to bless both of them. Then the magician stimulated the mana pool and added a pair of wings for each of them, ready to spread the wings and fly away. This was their only chance. That ferocious beast was fighting with the remaining 2 melee professions. Although it had the upper hand, it was still wounded by the explosion of its teammates before their death. And that terrifying high-order elemental shaman, after releasing the lightning storm, also fell into a state of paralysis due to the overload. The others were either still trapped by the blood-stained scroll or didn't have the means of long-range attack, so there was nothing to worry about. It was just that. What the hell? How could these Easterners have the means of Western continent people? If they knew that among this group of people, there was a strange beast that could not be restricted by the blood-stained scroll, a high-order elemental shaman, no matter what, they would have been prepared in advance. How could they fall into the situation where half of their people died? The great wizard who sold the blood-stained scroll claimed that as long as they didn't provoke the legendary level Eastern cultivator with the blood-stained scroll, it was enough to sweep everything. But now that was not the case at all. They were really fooled. With a strong sense of confusion and anger, the magician aka began to flap his wings, bringing a strong gust of wind, carrying him to a higher and farther place to escape. While flying, he began to think about how to take revenge. As the wise man of the team, he didn't have to always be in the front like the captain, but when the captain fell, he was duty-bound to take revenge. This group of Eastern cultivators, in terms of strength alone, was not too strong. The team's failure was because they were caught off guard. So, as long as they went back to regroup and recruit a few high-order professions with the same strength, they could still defeat the opponent. After all, the other party could only threaten 1 person and 1 beast. And at that time, the pain that he had suffered today, he would inflict 10 times, 100 times more on these Easterners. However, just as the magician secretly swore, a cold voice came into his ears. Offended the abbot and still want to leave? The magician was startled. He didn't have time to think about where the voice came from. He urged his wings with all his strength, crazily flying into the sky like an arrow. However, after flapping his wings twice, he found something strange. The blood cloud above his head seemed to be a bit different than before. The patter of blood rain had also stopped at some point in time. The effect of the blood-stained scroll had disappeared? It shouldn't be. Only less than a third of the time had passed. AKA, we seem to be trapped. My connection with the holy light has been cut off. The priest companion's slightly panicked voice also sounded at this time. As a high-order profession, the priest's soul had long been inextricably linked with the sea of holy light that he believed in, but at this time, he felt that this connection had been cut off. Fortunately, this was not the first time this kind of experience had happened. When entering some special space, the original connection may be cut off, but as long as one prayed again, the connection could be re-established. But the question was, when did they enter a special space? AKA, what's going on? The magician's face was gloomy. Using his wand as a medium, he released a few spells to explore the surroundings. He said coldly, we are trapped. It's a spell similar to the maze spell. This is no longer the space we were in before. With that, He turned around and looked down at the ground. The original clean stone path and the elegant scenery on both sides were gone, replaced by a broken land. Thousands of broken swords stood erect on the ground like tombstones. The sky and clouds overhead were still the color of blood, but it was different from the dark and terrifying color of the blood-stained scroll. It was more of a heroic color. Obviously, this was no longer the original space. Welcome to my world. Hey, it's really not easy to launch one's original magical ability in the Western continent. Fortunately, your Western continent also has a similar method. Finally, I found it. At this time, Wang Lu was completely different from the time when he was suppressed by the blood-stained scroll, where he couldn't control his magical power. In the Forest of Swords, he calmly walked. Each step just happened to step on the gap between the countless swords. The Forest of Swords also gently trembled along with his footsteps, as if to express their allegiance. With an absolute advantage, Wang Lu was not in a hurry to make his move. It seemed that he just wanted to keep the other party here. The magician AKA's mind quickly turned. The other party said that you also have a similar method, and he finally found it. What does this mean? Could it be that? After all, he was a knowledgeable profession. AKA quickly thought of a possibility. Universal law, cultivation-based transformation. Although it was unimaginable, it was the only possibility. The so-called universal law referred to the fact that although there were many differences between the 9 regions in the Western continent, in essence, there were still many similarities. For example, when an apple is ripe, it will always fall to the ground. Above the 9th heaven is a void. In the deep sea, there are tens of thousands of tons of pressure. Although there were many subtle differences, especially for the more powerful the individual, the more obvious the difference. For example, the Eastern cultivators paid particular attention to enlightenment. Brilliant cultivators would integrate the great Tao of heaven and earth into their jade mansion. However, the strong people of the Western continent didn't have such a unified concept. The path to the highest level was strange, not as unified as that of the 9 regions. With such a huge difference, the result was that when they set foot on another continent, it was likely that they would be suppressed by the law and their cultivation base would be scattered. Therefore, for thousands of years, although the communication between the 2 continents was increasingly frequent, it was more of a mortal's interaction. When one reached the high-order profession, they would be very cautious. However, thousands of years ago, when the civilizations of the Eastern and Western continent collided for the first time, a great sage pointed out that within the complex appearance, there were many similarities between the 2 continents. As long as one could grasp these similarities, it was possible to achieve the cultivation-based transformation and break through the wall of law. Of course, this required an exceptionally brilliant perception. Rumor has it that during the first war between the Eastern and Western continent, there was a brilliant swordsman from the 9 regions who, after landing on the Western continent, became a sword saint of the Western continent. There was also an example of a magister from the Western continent, who went to the 9 regions and comprehended the 9 regions' immortal path. However, those only existed in the history books, and their authenticity was doubtful. In fact, in recent years, there were countless strong people who died in a foreign land, regardless of whether it was the Eastern or Western continent. However, not many people were able to comprehend the law and successfully transform their cultivation base. Only some people with low cultivation base could do it. The more powerful one was, the more difficult it was to transform. Although there was still a long way to go from the legendary realm to the high-order profession, it was very difficult to transform the cultivation base. And now, right in front of him, a high-order profession from the 9 regions, in just a few moments, comprehended the law and transformed the cultivation base? Was this a miracle? In fact, Wang Lu didn't exaggerate that he could comprehend the law and break the wall of law in just a few moments. When he crossed the endless sea with the fleet, he had gradually come into contact with the law of the Western continent. After he went ashore, he did not stop to take the opportunity to comprehend the law of the Western continent, trying to find the part of the law that could be combined with his non-phase method. One of the biggest characteristics of non-phase method was its strong adaptability. Soon, he had a bond with the law of the Western continent. And when the blood-stained scroll fell, the law of the Western continent suppressed him in all directions, which suddenly became the opportunity for a breakthrough. At this time, the magician Akka was also thinking. The broken sword world where he was now seemed to be the rumored inherent enchantment, which was different from the general maze technique. The difficulty of breaking through was much higher. However, since the other party didn't immediately kill him, It meant that there was still room for mediation. On the one hand, he might as well use words to delay. On the other hand, he unfolded the magic array to try to break it. If it was an Eastern magic array, he knew that he was powerless. However, if it was a Western continent magic array, perhaps there was a glimmer of hope. Therefore, he immediately opened his mouth to try to delay the time. However, just as he brewed his lines, he felt a chill behind his back and a sword tip appeared in front of his chest. The holy shield that was given to him by the priest was actually gone. Feeling the rapid loss of his life, the magician tried his best to turn around and saw an innocent smiling face. He didn't know when a beautiful and peerless girl stood behind him. Her right hand was holding an ancient 9-region sword, and the sword was not stained with the slightest bit of blood. Be careful behind you. Chapter 286. What do you think? After withdrawing his original magical ability, Wang Lu didn't care about the magician and priest who fell from mid-air and just asked Aya with a smile. Aya said, "Very powerful. You always surprise me." For Aya, the destruction of that team of adventurers was not surprising. Although their bloodstained scroll was a new thing, under the cover of the bloodstained scroll, the power of the 10 people's concentrated fire was really amazing. However, if Wang Lu couldn't even overcome such a crisis, then he was not the Wang Lu that Aya was familiar with. However, even so, Aya didn't expect that Wang Lu and the others actually solved the problem in the most direct way. Universal Law, Cultivation-Based Conversion. Demon Wolf Fenrir was a native creature of the Western continent, but for some reason, it ran to 9 regions. Because it grew up in 9 regions, it could be considered as having 2 advantages. Bai Shixian was a mountain spirit, so she had the deepest understanding of the mountains and rivers. Moreover, immortal beasts were psychic, so in terms of perception, they were often stronger than complex human beings. However, Wang Lu and Lu Li have solidly comprehended the laws of the Western continent and immediately applied what they learned. Was cultivation-based conversion that difficult? Not necessarily. Aya herself completed the cultivation-based conversion in 9 regions as a legendary profession, from the Night King to the Sword Immortal of 9 regions. Although she rarely made her move in 9 regions, people on Spirit Sword Mountain were very clear that when she went all out, her strength was comparable to that of a Supreme of Unity stage. Of course, when her body of the brave departed was incomplete, going all out was tantamount to suicide. However, it took Aya more than 10 years to complete the cultivation-based conversion. Of course, that was because her cultivation base was too high, which was why it was slow. However, Wang Lu was able to comprehend the law in just a few days, including the time after sailing at sea near the Western continent, which was really admirable. Aya suddenly felt that her body of the brave departed had become a bit more solid, which made her startled. Obviously, it was because her trust in Wang Lu had increased a bit, which strengthened her sense of identity with a way to win the war. Thus her body of the brave departed had become more stable. If this continues, perhaps one day it will really be possible. However, when he thought of his country that had already passed away, he could not see any hope at all. However, that was not something to consider now. For the time being, let's see how far Wang Lu could go. In response to Aya's praise, Wang Lu smiled and placed his right fist on his chest. "I will fight for you, my queen." Aya was stunned for a moment. Looking at the familiar etiquette, she felt as if she had returned to more than 100 years ago. She stood in the hall surrounded by her ministers, shining brightly. Her Royal Highness was a group of steel-like knights, invincible and successful. The best men of the kingdom gathered in one place, fervently swearing eternal loyalty to their king. But in the blink of an eye, the illusion in front of her was restrained by Aya's strong willpower. The woman nodded and corrected him. "Your posture is correct, but strictly speaking, I am not a queen." Not considered a queen? Wang Lu was a bit puzzled. Before he set off, he vowed to help Aya restore her country, so naturally, he had to check the relevant information. The information in 9 regions was limited, but Aya's former Night King name could be considered as illustrious, which was recorded in some historical records of the Western continent. How could she not be a queen? Could it be because... After thinking about it, Wang Lu comforted her with a smile. "Don't belittle yourself like that. Although it's only a cup, at least your face is good-looking. It doesn't matter if you call me queen." Even though Aya had always been known for her tolerance and humility, at this time, she also felt that it was good to occasionally kill. However, it was related to her own reputation and even the reputation of the kingdom, so Aya seriously explained, When I was on the throne, I didn't show myself as a woman to the world. Except for a few people. Most people didn't even know that I was a woman. This was, of course, to maintain the majesty of the king. If Aya was in another profession, it would be fine. However, with her petite and exquisite body, she walked the most valiant knight path. A female knight might be a beautiful story in the folklore, but in the end, it was not as oppressive as a man. However, as soon as Aya finished her explanation, she felt that things were going to get worse. Sure enough, as soon as her voice fell, she saw that Wang Lu looked at her with more sympathy. Unexpectedly, no one knew about it. I can understand your pain. My condolences. Condolences what? Aya was seething with anger. She felt that her many years of upholding the knight spirit had been insulted. If this happened 100 years ago, a duel would be inevitable. However, this time it was too late. Because when Aya was ready to carefully argue with Wang Lu, another group of uninvited guests came. It was a team of knights riding on horses and wearing silver armors. From afar, they were very aggressive. After returning to the Western continent, Aya's strength continued to recover. When she first saw this team of knights, her eyes could not help but turn cold. The strength of these people was quite good. Each of them was on the threshold of being promoted to a high-order profession. In 9 regions, they were around Shudan stage. Their equipment and horses were extraordinary. If they were put on the battlefield, if there were no opponents with the same strength, perhaps tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of troops would be scattered. Even in her kingdom, which was famous for producing outstanding knights, this was still considered an expert. And here, in the vicinity of Deep Earth City, if she wasn't mistaken, they should be the personal guards of Deep Earth City's city lord. When Aya saw the 2 gray-brown robed shield guards at the back of the team of knights, she was even more sure of her conjecture. Because they were the specialty of Deep Earth City, Deep Earth Guardians. They wore heavy armor and could communicate with the earth and borrow the power of the earth. The strength of these 2 people was not inferior to the dozen people in front of them. They should be the right and left arms of the city master. The mounts of the team of knights were very spirited. In just a moment, they arrived at the front. The leader of the team glanced at Wang Lu and the others. Especially when he saw the tragic battlefield next to the carriage, he could not help but frown and sternly asked, "What's going on here? Tell me honestly." This bad tone and attitude caused a backlash on the spot. Wang Lu sneered. "It's none of your business that I, your father, am killing people." "Impudent!" The group of knights shouted in unison. Several of them simply pulled out their swords, ready to use force to deter them. As the personal guards of the city master, most of them had rich experience. Seeing this bloody scene, how could they not see the cause of the matter? As an important trade hub between the East and West continent, in recent months, Deep Earth City has received many cultivators from 9 regions. And then, robberies and murders of 9 regions' people were not uncommon. Initially, it started from the nearby larger port city, Hangxia City, and then gradually spread to Deep Earth City. At present, it was obvious that they were killed instead of killing people. From the scene, it could be seen that these 9 regions' cultivators were ambushed on the road. In fact, most of the recent killings were like this. It was just that, these people had special means, so that they didn't repeat the mistakes of others. Instead, they made the determined ambushers lose their lives one after another. Therefore, it was reasonable to say that they were the victims. However, the knights present could not sympathize with the victims. Each and every one of them had a gloomy face. Especially when they heard Wang Lu's reaction, they glared at him, wishing that they could help those ambushers and catch all these 9 regions cultivators in one fell swoop. When the situation was tense, a Deep Earth Guardian at the back of the team said, "We are the personal guards of the city master of Deep Earth City. We found traces of a fierce fight outside the city, so we came to check it out." Seeing the friendly attitude of this Deep Earth Guardian, Wang Lu also put on a smiling face. "Oh, it's your duty, I understand. Your dispatch speed is quite fast." The Deep Earth Guardian nodded. "If there is any big fight within a certain distance of Deep Earth City, we will be the first to be alerted, especially in a situation like this." Wang Lu said, "Oh, I see. Comrades, you've worked hard. Goodbye." With that, he turned around and was about to board the carriage. "Stop, who said you can leave?" The silver-armored knight captain sternly shouted, "After killing so many people, you want to leave?" Wang Lu turned around and said, "What? Do you want to avenge these robbers? When did Deep Earth City collude with these robbers? Shut up. Even if you're a barbarian from a different continent, you should know that you must abide by the laws of that place. According to the Deep Earth Code of Deep Earth City, after a murder, whether you're the murderer or the victim, you must be investigated by Deep Earth City. Oh, no matter who it is, they must be investigated? What if it's your father? Seeing that the two of them were at loggerheads and a battle was about to break out at any moment, the Deep Earth Guardian hurriedly said, "The reason why we set this rule is so that we can grasp more information and better maintain the security of this place to prevent more murders from happening. I hope you can understand and cooperate with us." Seeing that Wang Lu and the others didn't respond, obviously unwilling to cooperate, the guard continued, "Recently, some adventurers have intercepted and killed 9 regions cultivators, which has attracted the attention of many nearby city masters. The master of Deep Earth City once said that if someone can help him solve this matter, he is willing to thank them. He said that most of the cultivators from 9 regions who came across the sea are here for treasure hunting, and the most famous treasure hunting place in Western Continent is Taba City. When the master of Deep Earth City was young, he experienced many adventures in Taba City. His experience and harvest will certainly help you." Thereupon, Wang Lu's heart was immediately moved. Of course, he didn't care about the general sense of gratitude. As the lead disciple of one of the 5 uniques, what kind of rare treasure couldn't he get? However, if it was the strategy of Taba City, then it was worth paying attention to. "Very well, lead the way." The Deep Earth Guardians suddenly felt relieved. If they had a conflict with this group of 9 regions cultivators, regardless of the outcome, the master of Deep Earth City would certainly be furious. When Wang Lu agreed to go back to the city with the Deep Earth Knights to cooperate with the investigation, the rest naturally had no objection. The Knight Captain still had a gloomy face, as if he had a feud with someone who killed his father. Along the way, the Deep Earth Guardian explained to Wang Lu, "Your Excellency, please don't mind his attitude. He also has his own difficulties. Some time ago, because the 9 regions cultivators were frequently intercepted and killed, one of your strong people vented his anger on the civilians and massacred tens of thousands of soldiers and civilians in Stormwind City. And the captain's family happened to be in Stormwind City, so he inevitably..." Hearing this, Wang Lu was horrified. Massacred civilians? Chapter 287. Massacring Civilians? At that time, Wang Lu was startled. What kind of thing was coming to the Western Continent these days? Since the news that the key to the group of immortal tombs might be in the Western Continent was leaked, Wang Lu did not expect that group of miscellaneous soldiers could reflect the high quality that 9 regions cultivators should have. With a large number of cultivators from second- and third-rate sects crossing the ocean, the occurrence of low-quality incidents was simply a matter of course. After all, in the Western Continent, there was no Wanxian League to maintain the law and order of the world, and there was no terrifying Ninth Heaven Thunder Tribulation. After killing and arson, as long as one brushed one's clothes and safely returned from the ocean, there would be no consequences at all. Could the Western Continent people form a group to go to 9 regions for revenge? Since the first contact between the Eastern and Western civilizations, similar things have happened from time to time. It was just that. It was rare to see a city being massacred. Even if there was no heavenly tribulation in the Western Continent, would they not be afraid of the Demon Heart Tribulation after returning to 9 regions? Or was there really a devil sect that came to join in the fun? Wang Lu thought about it and could not help but sigh with emotion. This is simply pulling down the lower limit of the people of 9 regions. Although my Lingjian school has never regarded itself as the maintainer of the Order of 9 regions, when encountering this kind of thing, I can't just stand by and do nothing. Teske, a city massacre is rarely seen in 9 regions, but this is an eye-opener in the Western Continent. Therefore, please forgive his rudeness just now. After the Stormwind City incident, the people in several nearby cities have a more extreme impression of the people of 9 regions, so their attitude is inevitably offensive. Although the initial dialogue was full of unpleasantness, on the way back to the Deep Earth City, the Deep Earth Guardian repeatedly apologized to Wang Lu, which made him unable to lose his temper. Before long, the group returned to the Deep Earth City and met the master of the Deep Earth City, Sir Haddock, in a heavy fortress. Sir Haddock was a standard Western knight, and looked to be in his 40s or 50s. Time had chiseled lines into his meticulous face, but his neatly trimmed beard and short hair, and his sparkling eyes showed that he still had great energy. When they met, he was wearing casual clothes. Apart from the decorative sword on his waist, He didn't have any equipment that could be called armed. However, Wang Lu still felt a strong pressure when they met face to face. This Lord of Deep Earth City was at least a high-grade profession. Moreover, he was quite strong even among high-grade professions. He alone was stronger than the entire personal guards. This was also the norm of the city-states in the eastern part of the Western continent. Most high-grade professions were inextricably linked to the mortal world, and the lords of cities and even countries were usually held by high-grade and legendary professions. This was very different from the path of immortals and mortals in 9 regions. So when he saw Sir Haddock, Wang Lu was not surprised by his strength. But when Jazz opened his mouth, everyone was taken aback. Everyone, I already know what happened to you. In contrast, even Aya, the heroic spirit girl who had lived in 9 regions for decades, seemed to lack some of its charm. Seeing the surprised face of Wang Lu and the others, Sir Haddock gently explained, I found that when dealing with 9 regions people, if I can speak the native 9 regions language, I can always get unexpected benefits. You people attach much more importance to cultural identity than us. Later, I found out that I also have some talent in the Knight's Path. As a trade hub city, Deep Earth City's trade between the East and the West continent was of utmost importance. Although Sir Haddock was a high-grade profession and also the city lord, he still earnestly learned the language of 9 regions. After some idle talk, Sir Haddock sternly said, I believe on the way here, my men have already told you about the situation. In the past month, more than 29 regions cultivators have been intercepted and killed in the territory of Deep Earth City, and only a few of you survived. This situation has seriously affected the order of Deep Earth City, but Deep Earth City alone is not enough to solve the problem. I need more help. Of course, I won't let you work for nothing. Sir Haddock went straight to the point and didn't waste time on pleasantries. That being the case, Wang Lu also went straight to the point. You're the city lord of Deep Earth City, the great lord of a territory of thousands of miles. Can't you solve the security problem in your territory? Haddock said, if it's just a problem in Deep Earth City, I can naturally solve it, but there are deeper forces behind this matter. I believe you can also guess that the bloodstained scroll is not made by an ordinary person. Wang Lu said, yes, it seems that some powerful person is deliberately targeting us 9 regions people. Sir, do you have any clues? The origin of the bloodstained scroll is very mysterious. At present, there are not many conclusive clues. Half a month ago, my men sneaked into an adventure team and met a scroll merchant. The kind of scroll that can suppress the cultivators of 9 regions can be bought for only 500 magic coins. The price is unbelievably low. 500 magic coins was a sky-high price for low-order professions, but it was nothing for high-order professions. Relying on the suppression of the scroll to intercept and kill the people of 9 regions, once successful, the harvest would be 10 or 20 times more. Naturally, it would attract people like a flock of ducks. However, Wang Lu had personally experienced the overbearing power of the blood-stained scroll. The method to manipulate the law of the Western continent to suppress people was not something that could be bought with 500 magic coins. At least in the 9 regions, with Wang Lu's current cultivation base, he didn't dare to hope that he could manipulate the world's main path like this. Perhaps only the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall had this kind of ability. However, the cost of making a scroll was more than 1,000 spirit stones. 500 magic coins, which was equivalent to 500 spirit stones, was basically a losing business. It should be because they don't want to expose their existence. Wang Lu speculated, using the scroll to incite the neutral adventurers to intercept and kill the people of 9 regions, while hiding behind the scenes. But what's the benefit of doing this? No matter how many people of 9 regions die, the spoils of war will still belong to the adventurers. If they sell the scroll, they won't even be able to recover their capital. Haddock said, I was also puzzled by this at first. Generally speaking, there are only 2 kinds of people who would do this. One is the extremists, who hate everything in 9 regions. However, in recent years, extremists have become fewer and fewer. Moreover, if they want to do something, they won't hide their heads and show their tails. They would rather fight in front of the public so that more people know their ideas. The other kind is the followers of some evil god, who use special rituals to please their god. But there are many things that don't make sense. It wasn't until 10 days ago that I realized that I was confused and didn't notice an obvious clue. Wang Lu asked, what's wrong? Sir Haddock somewhat wryly smiled and picked up a report on the table. This is the latest trade data from my men. These days, our trade with the people of 9 regions has dropped by 70%. In addition to the situation on the Endless Sea, the biggest reason is the rapid deterioration of the public security in Deep Earth City, which makes many merchants and cultivators of 9 regions very uneasy. Although the storm on the Endless Sea has not yet subsided, many people have made up their mind to return to 9 regions. Many people have migrated to the western inland area because there has never been a killing incident against the people of 9 regions. Wang Lu gawked for a moment, and then said with a smile, "Does this mean that we, the people of 9 regions, have been caught in the crossfire?" In short, I suspect that there is someone behind the scenes trying to sow discord between the people of 9 regions and our Deep Earth City. In fact, not only Deep Earth City, almost all of our eastern city-states have encountered a similar situation. Even if it doesn't happen in our own territory, if it happens in the surrounding area, it would still make people panic. Wang Lu asked, "Who can benefit from this? What enemies do your eastern city-states have?" Our eastern city-states generally rely on trade. To do business, we need to make friends. Generally speaking, we won't deliberately make enemies. But, speaking about enemies, we do have them. Haddock pondered for a moment and then said, "Have you ever heard of Holy Light Religion?" Wang Lu thought for a moment. "Is it some kind of welfare organization that specializes in women's skirt?" Haddock froze for a long time, and then helplessly explained, "Holy Light Religion is the largest religious organization in the Western continent. Their power is mainly concentrated in the Western region. They believe in Holy Light, and generally speaking, they are a decent organization. However, in recent years they have shown a strong aggressiveness. They have no tolerance or pity for the heretics. In order to expand their power, they do everything possible. If they can be conquered by force, they conquer by force in the name of holy war. Otherwise, they use various means to carry out internal destruction. For example, this blood-stained scroll is likely to be their handiwork. When it comes to the perception and manipulation of the continent's laws, who can compare to Holy Light Religion? At the same time, they have been trying to annex the Eastern Kingdom for a long time, but they haven't succeeded. So that's how it is. Since you have locked the real culprit, then immediately unite the many city-states of the Eastern Kingdom to form a coalition to crush them to death. Burn all the Holy Light Religion believers on the stake and so on." Haddock said, "The power of Holy Light Religion is too strong. We can't even protect ourselves, let alone take the initiative to attack. On the surface, they have more than 5 legendary-level powerhouses, which is far above the Eastern Kingdom." 5 legendary-level powerhouses? TSK. TSK. Wang Lu repeatedly shook his head. In 9 regions, a legendary-level powerhouse was equivalent to peak deity stage or even supreme of unity stage. A sect with 5 legendary-level powerhouses was basically the same as the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. To provoke such an opponent, wasn't that just asking for trouble? By the way, Sir Haddock said, "The destination of your trip, Taba City, is one of the holy places of Holy Light Religion, which is strictly managed and ruled. Therefore, for you, Holy Light Religion is something that you can't avoid." What the? There's such a thing? Aya never said it. Aya also frowned. Is there such a thing? More than 100 years ago, Taba City was jointly governed by various countries. When did it become the holy place of Holy Light Religion? Haddock replied, 80 years ago, the current pope received an oracle, saying that Taba City is the holy place of Holy Light Religion, and then dispatched Holy Light Knights to capture Taba City. Chapter 288. According to Sir Haddock, the master of Deep Earth City, Holy Light Religion has become a barrier that Wang Lu and the others could not bypass. In addition to the blood-stained scroll incident, they also occupied Taba City and regarded themselves as the master. In recent decades, the development of Taba City in the mainland was under the control of Holy Light Religion. In fact, after occupying Taba City, Holy Light Religion truly became the most powerful organization in the mainland. Before that, their influence was only limited to one country. There is no doubt that they have obtained great benefits in Taba City. Rumor has it that someone in the religion has been recognized by the Golden King's treasure house, and became an existence similar to an administrator. Although they can't use the treasures at will, their authority is still very amazing. Wang Lu asked, "They occupied Taba City, don't the other forces have any ideas?" Haddock lightly said, "Of course there are, but they were hurt, so there's no more." Although Sir Haddock said it lightly, Wang Lu could imagine that it must have been accompanied by a bloody storm. And Holy Light Religion, who had paid a great sacrifice to occupy this place, naturally would not easily let it go. However, Wang Lu didn't come here to take away the Golden King's treasure house. He only needed the key, so there was no need to fight with Holy Light Religion. The only problem was, would Holy Light Religion allow Wang Lu and the others to easily take away the immortal treasure-level key from the Golden King's treasure house that they regarded as their exclusive property? Judging from the current situation, Holy Light Religion simply wanted to get rid of the 9 regions cultivators as soon as possible. Holy Light Religion did not deliberately target 9 regions, but in their view, 9 regions people are undoubtedly heretics, and sacrificing the heretics on the stake and turning them into a part of the Sea of Holy Light is a matter of course. They call it purification. Wang Lu ridiculed, like the big fish eating the small fish and the small fish eating the shrimp. Is it purification? Sir Haddock said, in the view of Holy Light Religion, the world is filthy and sinful, and can only be freed by converting to the Holy Light. As for the method of conversion, kneeling down and kowtowing is conversion, and being burned into holy fire on the stake is also conversion. In any case, if you want to achieve your goal, you inevitably have to deal with Holy Light Religion. After a pause, the knight said, of course, if you want to contend against a behemoth like Holy Light Religion, it's obviously not enough, but your sect certainly can. Wang Lu was curious. You can tell who my master is. Sir Haddock explained, of course, I can't see where his master is, but I at least know that a young 9 regions cultivator who has not yet crossed the threshold of a high-order profession, yet can comprehend the universal law and transform his cultivation base. His origin is most likely not ordinary. Wang Lu smiled. Sir Haddock was indeed the lord of a city. Even though he was a knight, he relied more on his brain than his physical strength. Knight, do you want to use the power of my sect to fight against Holy Light Religion? Haddock said, I'm definitely not trying to get something for nothing. I'm just taking advantage of the situation. Holy Light Religion is our common enemy, so of course, it's better to join hands to fight against the enemy. Your sect must have a powerful force in 9 regions, but it lacks local support. We have all kinds of geographical advantages in the Western continent, but our strength is not strong enough. We can make up for each other's shortcomings, so why not cooperate? Of course, I know that you may not be able to decide on this matter, but I can convey my sincerity. Not only my deep earth city, but also the common will of more than 30 city-states in the Eastern Kingdom. Wang Lu nodded and admitted that Haddock's argument was indeed very convincing. To be able to get the support of the local forces in the Western continent was undoubtedly very helpful. However, the price of this help was to offend the amazing power of Holy Light Religion. The pros and cons were not easy to calculate. In particular, he was very clear that the Lingjian school and even the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League had no interest in investing a lot of energy in the Western continent. After all, this was not the 9 regions, and there was no 9 regions heaven and earth Tao. This place could be used as an excellent experiential learning place, but it was not a home, and it would not be a home. Therefore, for all kinds of disputes in the Western continent, he just needed to look on coldly from the sidelines. For the sake of the Western continent natives, there was no need to invest precious power to pull chestnuts out of the fire. The people of the Western continent liked to expand and colonize, but the people of 9 regions were not so interested. Although Haddock's idea was good, it was doomed to be an illusion. However, the idea of joining hands was not wrong. It's very difficult to persuade the sect, but it's just a small matter. Why bother the sect's elders? Seeing Sir Haddock slightly frowned, Wang Lu explained with a smile, one of the important foundations of Holy Light Religion is Taba City, and the ruling power of Taba City on one hand, is established through many years of killing, and on the other hand, it is recognized by the king's treasure house itself. The latter is not without the possibility of being shaken. Sir Haddock frowned even tighter. Sorry, I don't quite understand. In short, it's to make the king's treasure house no longer recognize them. The inheritance left by Golden King has its own rules. Since Holy Light Religion became the administrator, it must have pleased the king's treasure house. So, as long as I do better than them, wouldn't I have the opportunity to take away the administrator position? Rumor has it that Golden King's favorite thing to do is to throw out the bounty and let the warriors under his command fight for it. He is the king who extremely encourages competition. So, it stands to reason that the administrator position of Holy Light Religion is not hereditary. Haddock nodded again and again. Yes, that's the truth. But it's easier said than done to seize the administrator position. Before Holy Light Religion, for so many years, no one was able to unify Taba City and get the recognition of the king's treasure house. Wang Lu lightly interrupted. That's because I didn't come. 3 days later, Wang Lu and the others departed from Deep Earth City. During this period, Sir Haddock, the master of Deep Earth City, accepted Wang Lu's proposal to cooperate with Wang Lu's special operations. That is, to sneak into Taba City and subvert the rule of Holy Light Religion over the Holy Land. In a single sentence, this operation plan was almost like a joke, but Wang Lu was very persistent, almost stubborn, and Sir Haddock didn't want to needlessly offend a young genius from 9 regions. Not to mention that in these 3 days, Wang Lu also showed his formidable strength. Perhaps in terms of level, he was just a young man who hovered before the King Pill, which was the threshold of a high-order profession. But before the King Pill, without condensing the 9 regions' great Tao into his body, his strength in the Western continent was ultimately limited. The conversion rate of cultivation base was also not 100%. But even so, he was still very strong, so strong that Sir Haddock couldn't do anything to him even if he personally made a move. As the master of Deep Earth City, Sir Haddock was also a first-class powerhouse among the 36 city-states in the Eastern Kingdom. Although he was still far from the legendary realm, ordinary high-order professions couldn't withstand his sword for more than 3 to 5 moves. Relying on his Radiant Knight's powerful body, he could sweep away thousands of troops and horses. When he swung his sword, the sword momentum was like a stormy sea, enough to destroy a city and destroy a country. Whether it was the magician's strange magic, the spirit master's rare birds and beasts, or the shaman's elemental power, he could cut them all with one sword strike. If compared to the standard of 9 regions, he was an out-and-out Yuanying stage master. Moreover, he was a middle-level Yuanying stage master. However, such a master was helpless after Wang Lu launched his original magical ability. Although he was not defeated, he was completely helpless against Wang Lu. In the inherent enchantment, Wang Lu combined offense and defense. Although his nature was more inclined to defense, he could use the power of the broken sword to continuously weaken and disturb the opponent, making Sir Haddock unable to make his move even though he had the absolute power. Occasionally, when he seized the opportunity to confront Wang Lu head-on, he found that the earth sword that he was so proud of could not disintegrate Wang Lu's 3-feet sword defense. Instead, under the counterforce, he felt a faint numbness in his arm. In a one-on-one fight, they were evenly matched. However, once Wang Lu joined forces with the others, whether it was Lu Li, Bai Shixian, or Quan Zuhua, they would quickly gain an overwhelming advantage, forcing Sir Haddock to admit defeat. In fact, in theory, if Sir Haddock's fighting power was 10, then Wang Lu's peak level was 8 to 9, and the others were not stronger than Wang Lu. Even if the 2 of them cooperated, at most, they could barely suppress Haddock. After all, fighting power was not a simple addition. Thus, in actual combat, the overwhelming advantage naturally came from Wang Lu's grasp of the battle. It was also because of this that Sir Haddock approved of his plan. Individual fighting power is basic, but not the key. I am a professional adventurer. My real skill is to overcome the dangers with limited strength. After recognizing the ability of Wang Lu, Sir Haddock sent one of his deputies, Cliff, to go with Wang Lu. He was a short night walker, a high-order thief profession. He had accompanied Sir Haddock for many years. They once explored the king's treasure house together and assisted him to obtain the key treasure, which later allowed Haddock to establish his own city-state on the eastern coast and become the master of millions of people. In terms of treasure house exploration experience, he and Sir Haddock were almost equal. For Sir Haddock to send him was enough to show the importance he attached to Wang Lu. At the same time, he also sent a carriage with the mark of Deep Earth City. With the protection of the master of Deep Earth City, they did not encounter any trouble along the way. It was not that the prestige of the master of Deep Earth City was enough to deter the small fry, but everyone understood that it was one thing to intercept a group of 9 regions cultivators who had no foundation in the Western continent, but another thing to make a move against the people of the Eastern city-state. Half a month later, the carriage of the master of Deep Earth City, carrying Wang Lu and his team, crossed the Eastern city-state, entered the central region of the Western continent, and came to the outside of Taba City. Taba City, the paradise of Western continent adventurers. With the ruins of the king's treasure house as the center, after thousands of years, a huge city-state was formed. Within a radius of thousands of miles, There were countless large and small towns and villages. And these were all for the service of the towering city in the center. Taba City. It was a city far more magnificent than imagined. Compared to it, Sir Haddock's decades of hard work, Deep Earth City, which occupied the port trade hub, seemed particularly small. The population of the city was probably in the millions. Previously, there was no absolute ruler in Taba City. When it was governed by a number of countries, it seemed scattered. But now, after it was designated as the Holy Land by Holy Light religion, the power was unified, and it burst out in astonishing pressure. Standing at the city gate, Wang Lu seemed to see an endless sea of holy light. And standing above the sea of holy light, the Golden King, who was at a higher place. In his ears, he seemed to hear the laughter of the ancient king. "Bastards! Do you want my treasure? Then go and get it. I put everything in the king's treasure house." Chapter 289. When the carriage of the master of Deep Earth City arrived outside Taba City, Cliff began to seriously introduce the situation of Taba City to Wang Lu. The core of Taba City is the Golden King's treasure house. All the facilities in the city are built around the treasure house. And the reason why this city is so magnificent is because there is not only one entrance to the treasure house, but almost infinite. Moreover, they are scattered all over the area of hundreds of miles, without a trace. In the beginning, people would even find the entrance to the treasure house in a boulder or an ancient tree. Later, these entrances were gradually sorted out and marked. Later, in order to unify the management, this city was built. Wang Lu asked, "The entrances are scattered? So do they all lead to the same place?" "Different. The internal structure of the king's treasure house is very mysterious. It is divided into many independent spaces, large and small. Each entrance corresponds to a space, but the corresponding relationship is not fixed. Even if it's the same entrance, different entrances may lead to different treasure house spaces. However, according to the current understanding of the treasure house, there are still traces to follow. First, the number of treasure house spaces is not infinite. The number should be around 1 million. Second, the corresponding relationship between the entrance and the treasure house space is not completely random. Generally speaking, 1 million treasure house spaces can be divided into 9 layers. The level of the treasures hidden in each layer and the difficulty of the test are roughly the same. The entrance in Taba City can only lead to a fixed level of treasure house space. Wang Lu nodded to show his understanding. The same entrance, even if it leads to a different space, the level is fixed. Cliff said, in the 9 layers of the king's treasure house, at the beginning, there are only ordinary gold and silver jewelry. But as the level increases, in the 3rd and 4th layer, there will be very precious treasures. 4 ordinary adventurers, those are rare treasures that are enough to make them risk their lives to get them. And from the 5th layer onwards, it is even more extraordinary. Even high-order professions will be moved. My master, Sir Haddock, obtained the Deep Earth God Seal on the 6th layer and established his own city-state. Wang Lu sighed softly. Deep Earth God Seal? Sir Haddock established his own city-state? According to the strength of the Sir, it was probably a middle-grade spiritual treasure. Previously, when they were comparing notes in Deep Earth City, he didn't use it. Obviously, it was a life-or-death treasure, so he wouldn't easily see it. If the 6th floor already had middle-grade spiritual treasures, what would the 7th, 8th, and 9th floors be like? The Golden King was indeed worthy to be the most ancient king in the Western continent. He ruled his country for tens of thousands of years, leaving behind countless epics and legends. Only when his lifespan was exhausted did the country collapse, but his influence was still passed on forever. Both of them were kings, and Aya was also the famous Night King, and her strength was even at the legendary level. However, compared to the Golden King, even someone as proud as Aya admitted that she was inferior. However, no matter how magical the legend of the Golden King was, no matter how illustrious the reputation of the king's treasure house was, it was, after all, tens of thousands of years ago. Dixian's group of immortal tombs was built about 16,000 years ago. As a matter of fact, the time was not right, but Wang Lu had a strong hunch. The key to the group of immortal tombs was here. In the past, Golden King's prestige shook the Western continent, and he had great ambitions. To say that his eyes had never crossed the endless sea and had never seen the scenery of 9 regions. Was it possible? For the time being, it was unknown how much the two were related. However, as long as he went deep into the treasure house, Wang Lu believed that he would be able to find the answer. And according to his own ability, he would start from the 6th floor. Cliff frowned. I'm afraid not. Right now, the entrances to the 3rd floor and above are basically under the control of Holy Light Religion. If you want to enter the king's treasure house, you must register with Holy Light Religion. And if you want to enter the 5th floor and above, you need the approval of the Bishop of Holy Light Religion. With our origin, it's basically impossible to pass the approval. Even the registration can't pass. And above the 7th floor is not open to the public. And then, Cliff said, no ruler can perfectly control every corner of the territory. Although Taba City is the holy land of Holy Light Religion, in such a huge city, there will always be places that they can't take care of. Although most of the entrances to the 3rd floor and above are controlled, the entrances to the 1st and 2nd floor are too scattered, so they simply can't manage them. Right now, most of these entrances are under the control of the Brotherhood. Brotherhood? Cliff explained, the ruler of the underground world. There's an underground world where the holy land of Holy Light Religion is located? Cliff smiled slightly. No matter how strong the sunlight is, it can't penetrate the earth. Where there are people, there will be light and shadow. Wang Lu said, you're a night walker, so you should have a connection with the Brotherhood. Cliff said, yes, that's why the master sent me. I can contact the Brotherhood to help you get the admission qualification. But my relationship with them ends here. It's impossible for the Brotherhood to offend Holy Light Religion for you. In short, don't trust them. Wang Lu nodded, inwardly saying, I actually don't trust you. The Brotherhood only controls the 1st and 2nd floor entrances to the treasure house. But the space inside the treasure house is not completely isolated. If you achieve an amazing result in a trial on a certain floor, then you can pass the trial and enter the next floor. In theory, you can go deeper into the treasure house from the 1st floor to the 9th floor. Of course, this is very difficult. Entering from the lower floor entrance and going deeper into the treasure house is far more difficult than directly entering from the higher floor entrance. As far as I know, those who pass the trial in the treasure house can only go as deep as the 6th floor, and the treasures that you want are at least in the 7th floor. But the master said that you're a professional adventurer, so you shouldn't care about this difficulty, right? Wang Lu gently nodded. Of course I don't care. From the bottom floor to the bottom floor until I pass the trial. Professional adventurers like this kind of 0-1 game the most. Very well, since you have the confidence, then I'll take you to see the Brotherhood. After entering Taba City, the carriage moved in a low-key manner in the city. Even the mark of Deep Earth City was hidden. There were Holy Light Knights and Holy Light Priests patrolling everywhere in the city, so the mark of the Eastern City-State would only bring trouble. Under the guidance of Clive, they came to a dilapidated tavern. Gold Rush City was full of adventurers who came to seek treasures. Taverns, baths, and other service industries were also flourishing. However, this tavern was dilapidated and deserted, seemingly out of place. Wang Lu and the others followed Clive into the tavern. Inside, in addition to the sloppy bartender behind the bar, there were only 2 or 3 bored burly men looking after the place. Seeing Wang Lu and the others come in, they didn't even lift their eyelids. Clive quietly made a gesture in front of his chest and softly said, "May the shadow shelter us." The bartender then became serious. "Night walkers from the east? What can I do for you? We want to enter the 2nd floor of the king's treasure house." The bartender looked at this group of people. Seeing the oriental faces of Wang Lu and the others, he immediately understood. However, he didn't say much and just nodded. "Sure, do you know the rules?" Clive said, "Of course, there's no free lunch in this world. Obviously, to enter the king's treasure house through the entrance of the Brotherhood, they needed to buy a ticket." The bartender asked again, "Buy out or share?" Clive turned around and waited for Wang Lu's decision. "Wait, buy out and share? What does that mean?" Clive explained, "Share means that according to the harvest of the treasure hunt, the Brotherhood will take a percentage of the commission, ranging from 20% to 50%. There are 2 types of buyout. One is to pay the ticket in one go, and the Brotherhood will have nothing to do with how much they get after that. The other is to charge according to the time spent searching for the treasure, and the specific harvest is not considered. Generally speaking, those who are confident in their strength can buy out, and share is more reliable. Well, the charging service is quite humane, but what if they die inside? The bartender smiled sinisterly. We don't take money from dead people. In other words, if the adventurers died in the treasure house, the Brotherhood would not get anything. However, it was a business without capital, so it was not a loss. With your situation, if it's share, we'll take 40%. Clive was surprised. So high. A group of cultivators from the east wants to search for treasures in Taba City. Now they can only go through our Brotherhood. We have no reason not to ask for a sky-high price. If it wasn't for the Nightwalkers, we would at least ask for more than 50%. The bartender said, if it's a buyout, it will be charged in magic coins, 200 for an hour and 1,000 for the night. Wang Lu was startled. Wait a minute, this charging standard is very strange. Sorry, it's booking the whole place, not the night. Sorry, I've been on duty in the bath center for the past few months. The bartender patted his bald head. In short, the price is right. What do you choose? Of course it's the night. No, it's the whole place. Oh, booking the whole place? It seems that you want to pass the level one after another? Good luck. Easterner. The bartender's smile was not good. The price set by the Brotherhood was actually very reasonable. 200 for an hour and 1,000 for the whole place, which meant that they had to stay in the treasure house for at least 5 hours. However, the first and second floor tests were not that complicated. Generally, they could pass in 1 or 2 hours. Those who chose to book the whole place were confident that they could get an excellent evaluation on the first and second floor, so that the treasure house could open a deeper passage and continue to explore after the third floor. But according to the experience of the Brotherhood for so many years, if they wanted to get the key to a deeper level, the possibility. Hey, tonight was really big. Not long after, the group, under the leadership of the Brotherhood, saw the entrance to the king's treasure house in the underground wine cellar of the tavern. It was a huge wooden barrel. After opening the lid, there was a void, and a deep whirlpool slowly rotated. Behind the whirlpool, there was a long and deep corridor, with neat brick walls on both sides. Torches illuminated the front, but in the end, it was hidden in the darkness. Seeing this scene, Clive said, "Meeting on a narrow path? Our luck is really good." Meeting on a narrow path. Clive explained, at the end of this long corridor, there will be a golden guardian, whose strength is roughly equivalent to a high-order profession. As long as you defeat him, you can pass, and if it goes well, you can enter the next level. It belongs to the relatively simple and clear space of the treasure house, which is very suitable for you, the powerful treasure hunters. That's simple? The first 2 floor tests are only for miscellaneous soldiers, so of course it's simple. The existence of the king's treasure house is somewhat like recruiting courtiers for the dead Golden King. The first 2 levels are just the lowest level of miscellaneous soldiers. As long as you have a certain amount of martial arts, you can pass. The truly complex space is only after the 4th level. The group chatted as they walked. As soon as Clive's voice fell, a golden figure appeared in front of them. It was a tall and sturdy giant, like a small mountain. He wore heavy golden armor and held a giant battle axe in his hand. His aura was astonishing. As Clive said, he was indeed at the level of a high-order profession. One person could break thousands of soldiers and horses. However, in the eyes of Wang Lu and the others, he was just a big wooden dummy. After all, it was only the 2nd level, so there was no difficulty to speak of. However, just as Wang Lu and the others were ready to pass, suddenly, an arrogant laughter came from the end of the passage. "Ha ha ha, another overconfident bastard broke into my treasure house? What the hell, what kind of thing is this?" Clive somewhat nervously said, "This is the phantom of the Golden King. He is everywhere in the treasure house, but not often encountered. However, every encounter means that there will be an accident. Sometimes he will send a disaster, sometimes he will make a request to the treasure hunters, and sometimes he will simply give a reward, which is hard to predict. But in short, we must obey his will, because this is his treasure house." Wang Lu said, "Simply put, he is the publisher of a random event?" Speaking to this, suddenly, the Golden Guardian at the end of the passage roared. His whole body was ignited with a bloody mist, and his strength skyrocketed. Oh, the monster went berserk? Does this mean that there will be a disaster? What an unfriendly publisher. The next moment, the laughter of the Golden King echoed in the passage. "Insects, do your best to please me." "Insects?" Wang Lu frowned and touched his chin. "Do you want to please me?" Then he raised his head and stepped forward. His original magical ability, the Broken Sword World, which has become an inherent enchantment in the Western continent, was unfolded and contained the entire passage. The Golden Guardian who guarded this passage looked at the bloody world around him with some confusion. He was only one of the lowest-level guards of the Golden King's treasure house. Even if his power was stimulated by the will of the Golden King, he still lacked enough wisdom to understand this change. In fact, if it were a relatively high-level guard of the treasure house, he would never allow the opponent to pull him into the inherent enchantment. However, this Golden Guardian instinctively felt that the young man in front of him was a great threat, so he needed to come up with all his strength to deal with him. He crisscrossed the two axes in front of his chest and adopted a defensive posture, because he felt that the young man in front of him seemed to be good at defense and not good at offense. The next moment, he felt a sharp pain in his back. His thick armor was pierced by a sharp weapon, and a snow-white sword came out of his chest. "Be careful of your back." At the last moment, he heard the innocent voice of a young girl, and then he fell into endless darkness. Clive, who watched the whole thing from the side, was astonished and tongue-tied. That's it? In his view, the strength of that Golden Guardian was not weak. After being stimulated by the Golden King, it became even more powerful. Although it was only on the second floor, its strength was comparable to the third and fourth floor guards. No matter what, it should be a hard fight. Perhaps even him, the tour guide, would have to be involved. However, he didn't expect. Thinking of Lu Li's sword that came and went like a ghost from behind, even as a Nightwalker, he was somewhat terrified. However, solving the Golden Guardian didn't mean that it was over. Just now, since the illusion of the Golden King had appeared, then what to do next would have to follow the instructions of the Golden King. However, after a long time, when the Golden Guardian at the end of the passage had turned into a handful of fine sand, its golden armor and body had completely decayed, the voice of the Golden King didn't ring again, and the end of the passage didn't open. Whether it was leaving or entering the next floor, the road ahead was blank. "What's going on?" Wang Lu somewhat impatiently asked. Clive shook his head with a wry smile. The illusion of the Golden King was very rare. In the past, he and Sir Haddock had ventured hundreds of times in Taba City, but they only encountered the illusion once. That was on the 6th floor. His master Haddock got the appreciation of the Golden King and was rewarded with a Deep Earth seal, which then led to the Deep Earth City. But the whole process was inexplicable. His understanding of the Golden King's illusion was also obtained from his constant exchange with other treasure hunters. To explain the current situation, he was really helpless. After thinking about it, Clive guessed, just now His Majesty Golden King wanted us to please him, and now, perhaps he's not satisfied with our performance? Wang Lu angrily said, "What's there to be dissatisfied with? Do you want us to strip off the Golden Guardian's tentacles and teach him a lesson?" Clive was taken aback. "How can you say such blasphemous words here?" Wang Lu angrily said, "Does that mean you look down on quick attack in the face? What's wrong with a man being a bit faster? I think, F***CK, you're not satisfied with this and that. Why are you so difficult to please? Seeking to please, isn't that just for fun?" With that, Wang Lu fiercely shouted, "Little girl, quickly give this uncle a good time." Just when Clive was about to be scared to death by Wang Lu, Golden King's voice once again surged. "Ha ha ha ha, what an interesting little bug. Come on, go deeper into the treasure house and let me see how much ability you have. If you can satisfy me, I will forgive your rudeness just now." While speaking, the fine sand of the Golden Guardian gradually condensed into a huge golden brick, the reward for clearing the level, as well as a glittering golden key. At the same time, a door appeared at the end of the passage. The door leading to the 3rd floor of the treasure house. Chapter 290. What kind of person is this Golden King? Walking on the winding road on the 3rd level of the treasure house, Wang Lu somewhat bored and asked. The 3rd level of the treasure house was not as simple and clear as the 2nd level. The spatial structure was extremely complex. According to Cliff's experience, the theme of this level was a maze. Because it was only the 3rd level, there would not be a large number of guardians or dangerous traps in the maze. The test was how fast one could get out of it. It was a peaceful and comfortable level, but it was also a test to wear down one's patience. According to Cliff's understanding, even if one had the ability to eliminate all the interference and directly follow the most concise and correct path, it would take at least half a day to get out of the 3rd level of the maze, that was to say, his choice to buy the ticket to enter the treasure house was correct. And as a professional adventurer, Wang Lu's ability to walk through the maze was indeed brilliant. At each intersection, he made a choice almost without thinking, and then, according to his Nightwalker intuition, it seemed that the exit was getting closer and closer. Along the way, it was calm. There were no guardians or traps. Wang Lu was bored, so he began to chat and asked about the Golden King. The legend of the Golden King was basically known to the people of the Western continent. He was the most ancient king recorded in the history of the Western continent after the Savage Era. He established a powerful kingdom in the center of the continent, with vast territory and powerful national power. His reign lasted for tens of thousands of years, leaving behind countless epic legends. Legend has it that his strength was so powerful that it surpassed the legendary realm and even reached the realm of God. Legend has it that he took all the treasures in the world as his own and stored them in the king's treasure house. Legend has it that he was tyrannical, suppressing the country with his powerful strength and brutal rule. There was a great difference between the Western continent and the 9 regions. The historiography here was far from developed enough. Therefore, when tracing back to the legend of tens of thousands of years ago, it was basically based on the scale, and the authenticity was completely unreliable. Nowadays, a lot of the knowledge about the Golden King was obtained from the process of treasure hunting in the king's treasure house and the contact with the phantom of the Golden King. There were very few historical materials from tens of thousands of years ago to the present. Therefore, when it came to the Golden King, it was not easy to talk about it. Only a very knowledgeable scholar could do it. At least, Cliff was far from it. Fortunately, there was indeed a knowledgeable person in the group. I know a little about the history of the Golden King. After all, he is known as the king who stands at the top, so I have to study it. In the historical materials, he is cruel and heartless, a tyrant through and through. But how could such a tyrannical king establish the first country in the continent and continue to rule for thousands of years? In fact, his tyranny was mostly aimed at the mediocre people at the bottom. He was very generous and merciful to those who could obtain his recognition. According to historical records, he had bestowed many treasures to his trusted generals. He had a group of loyal subjects and a stable regime. So I think, even though most of the historical materials are criticizing him, he should be a very charismatic king. Wang Lu smiled and said, "You also find him charming?" Aya shook her head seriously. "No, I'm disgusted with his way of ruling. Although his achievements are world-shaking, I think it's not the right way. Frankly speaking, I hate him." Wang Lu smiled. People often say that people in the same trade have a relationship of pure hatred, and it is indeed true. You bunch of kings just don't like each other, right? Aya was a little angry. In your opinion, am I that narrow-minded? When Wang Lu's eyes met with Aya's pair of angry green eyes, the words, "a cup girl shouldn't be entangled in narrow-mindedness and generosity," that were already on the tip of his tongue suddenly couldn't come out. Wang Lu quickly changed his words and said, "I'm just joking, don't mind it. It's just, his achievements are so high, it's hard for you to say that as someone in the same trade." Aya sternly said, "The achievements of the Golden King are indeed far higher than mine, and I also admire this. But think about it from another perspective. He has an unprecedented talent, and his strength is comparable to that of God. During his reign, there were no powerful foreign enemies, so why did his Golden Kingdom collapse? Why can his glorious reign only be traced back to the ruins of Taba City? Why do most of the historical materials deny his rule? I think this must be a flaw in his way of being a king. I believe that the virtues of generosity, kindness, humility, and so on should be treated equally, not differently. Only paying attention to those who are powerful and excellent, and despising those who are humble and insignificant, this kind of method is too eager for quick success, and also somewhat petty. Of course, the most important thing is, as a king, the ruler of the people, one should always have a fair heart, and must never indulge in selfish desires, let alone abandon the public for personal reasons. A king is more of a responsibility than a privilege. If one can't recognize this, then he is not worthy to be the ruler of the people. Without this awareness, instead of establishing a country in the mortal world, it's better to be like the cultivators of the 9 regions, living in seclusion in the mountains and valleys, and then unifying the world. Aya's heartfelt words had been brewing for a long time, and she had never said them to outsiders. Wang Lu was stunned and thought, "Comrade Aya, it's a damn pity that you don't serve the people with this awareness." However, deep down, Wang Lu disagreed with Aya's idea. amiable and approachable, treating everyone equally? It sounded nice, but this was not just an idealization, it was simply nonsense. It was completely contrary to the objective law of things. No wonder Aya became the ruler of a subjugated country. However, he had already thought of this. When he vowed to help Aya restore her country, Wang Lu realized that before restoring her country, he must at least correct Aya's wrong idea of governance. Otherwise, even if the country was restored, it would only repeat the same mistake, and the country would perish again. Of course, now was not the time to train Aya. Arguing with a stubborn person like her would only cause them to part on bad terms. So, it was better to coax and tease her first. Yes, Aya, you're right. The power of a ruler comes from the people, so he should serve the people wholeheartedly, and must not use power for personal gain. If you want to be an official, don't even think about getting rich. Aya's eyes lit up. If these are your sincere words, I have to look at you in a new light. I heard that you have developed a sect in 9 regions, which attaches great importance to the grassroots construction. I think you're on the right path. Wang Lu turned his head to hide his sympathetic and compassionate eyes. Aya, you're really worthy of being the ruler of a subjugated country. While talking, Wang Lu had led the team to the exit of the 3rd floor. This labyrinth, which had trapped many adventurers for 10 days to half a month, was broken by Wang Lu in just a few hours. With such excellent results, it was only natural that he earned a golden key to the next floor at the exit. The reward was also quite generous. This time, he obtained a treasured saber that gleamed with a cold light. Just this saber alone was worth several thousand magic silver. He had earned back his ticket money. But strangely, the phantom of the Golden King never appeared again. On the 4th floor, the situation changed again. The 4th floor of the treasure house was unexpectedly a simple and direct test. When they came out of the entrance, they saw a circular arena. At the other end of the arena, 5 golden guardians stood side by side, exuding murderous aura. Cliff's complexion changed. Endless arena. This is going to be troublesome. What? Could it be that these 5 people are the Fuwa combination that can transform into the magical 5 rings? Wang Lu asked. Cliff shook his head. They are nothing special, but this is only the 1st level. After defeating the 5 of them, more powerful guardians will appear, and they're endless. Generally speaking, as long as you win more than 2 rounds, you can pass, but if you want to enter the next floor, no one knows how many levels you have to pass. In this Golden King's treasure house, it's too difficult to crush them by force. I've communicated with many treasure hunting teams, and almost no one can pass such a level. Wang Lu lightly said, That's because I didn't come before. Cliff's tiger body was trembling. While speaking, Wang Lu once again took the lead and rushed toward the 5 people. While taking a step, his original magical ability spread out, which accommodated the entire arena. The 5 golden guardians were still slow to react to the change of environment. After staring blankly for a moment, they instinctively formed a formation, 3 in the front and 2 in the back, which was a standard defensive formation. These golden guardians were half living beings and half puppets. They had almost no wisdom, only fighting spirit. Therefore, in the arena, the golden guardians were the most valiant warriors. The reason why they could instinctively adopt a defensive stance was because the pressure from Wang Lu's original magical ability was too strong. However, it was only because this magical ability to transform space was too advanced that it had an instinctive suppressive effect on the golden guardians. In terms of strength, it was impossible for Wang Lu to suppress 5 golden guardians who were comparable to high-order professions. After all, he was good at defense, not offense and control. However, for Wang Lu, being able to suppress the opponents for a moment was enough. Rise! Along with Wang Lu's order, the more than 100 messy broken swords under the feet of the 5 golden guardians suddenly swelled up, becoming dozens of times larger than the original, forming a dense fence, which then formed a sword prison, which locked all 5 golden guardians inside. Roar! The golden guardians immediately brandished the various heavy weapons in their hands and began to bombard Wang Lu's sword prison. However, this sword prison contained the formless sword Qi, which was incomparably strong. Although the 5 of them attacked together, it would take them a while to break the sword prison. And in this short period of time, a huge shadow fell from the sky. It was a mountain. A huge mountain composed of solid reddish-brown rocks, which almost completely filled Wang Lu's magical ability space, fell from the sky. Bai Shixian stood behind Wang Lu, her slender arms raised high, drawing the anger of the earth. That was the power she borrowed from the earth with her mountain spirit body. Although simple, it was undoubtedly very powerful. The 5 golden guardians roared in unison. At the last moment, they broke the sword prison, but it was too late to dodge, so they could only take it with their bodies. The next moment, the mountain fell to the ground, and with a loud rumbling sound, the entire magical ability space trembled violently. If it were any other high-order profession, they would have been crushed into minced meat. However, the Golden Guardians were indeed the subordinates of the Golden King, who were good at using brute force to break technique. The 5 of them formed a formation and unexpectedly withstood Bai Shixian's Mount Tai pressure. They saw that between the mountain and the ground, 5 burly and powerful figures abruptly propped up a gap. Under the push of the 5 Golden Guardians, the huge mountain actually faintly tilted to the side. My goodness, in terms of strength alone, I'm afraid these Golden Guardians are almost as strong as Sir. Cliff was secretly shocked. At the same time, he was also thinking, how would Wang Lu's side deal with these 5 indestructible warriors? Generally speaking, only magicians, spiritualists, and the like could use a variety of means to disintegrate the Golden Guardians. Fighting them head-on was really unwise. However, among Wang Lu and the others, it seemed that only Bai Shixian's means were a bit more diverse. The next moment, the answer was revealed. Be careful, behind you. It was still the same familiar line, but Lu Li's entrance was completely different. At this time, a girl in a colorful dress was standing behind the 5 Golden Guardians. The girl's figure appeared particularly slender between the mountain and the ground, especially compared to the giant sword that she was holding in her hands. This time, Lu Li didn't use her flying sword to stab them from the back. Instead, she had already stood in position, waiting for Wang Lu and Bai Shixian to display their respective means to control the 5 Golden Guardians, making them unable to move. She then took the opportunity to refine the most powerful weapon in her hand. The sword of the ancient sword god Zhong Shangming, Skybreaker. As a former immortal-level flying sword, Skybreaker had too much power. Although Lu Li's aptitude was high, her cultivation base was shallow. At this time, she might not even be able to display 1% of its power. However, this less than 1% was enough. She drove the flying sword with her brilliant sword heart, ignoring the hundreds and thousands of sword arrays contained in the sword body. She just urged it to grow bigger and bigger, until it became as big as a mountain and incomparably heavy. She couldn't display the magical ability of Skybreaker, but the quality of the sword body was undoubtedly an immortal treasure. She expanded the sword body thousands of times. Even though it made her move slow and without any flexibility and precision, if one couldn't avoid this blow, anyone would die without a doubt. And at this time, with the sword prison and the pressure of Mount Tai, how could the 5 Golden Guardians, who were known for their strength, dodge it? The next moment, Lu Li smirked and swept the Skybreaker forward, destroying the sky and extinguishing the earth. Be careful behind you. The sword swept out, and there was no front or back. Chapter 291. The 5 Golden Guardians were annihilated under the might of the Skybreaker. However, before people could sigh with emotion at the power of Lu Li's sword, the next round of the fight had already begun. Lu Li's sword swept across, and Wang Lu's original magical ability was somewhat unable to withstand it and disintegrated. The red mountains summoned by Bai Shixian also gradually turned into nothingness. A group of people reappeared in the Golden King's arena, and the opponent in the arena has been replaced by a warrior whose stature was a bit taller than the Golden Guardians and was similarly covered in heavy armor. Compared to the Golden Guardians, his armor and weapons were much better. The surface of the armor was flowing with a sparkling luster, showing its extraordinary quality. There was also a scepter hanging on his waist, which also contained a profound mystery. Although the opponent in the second round was only one person, this person's imposing manner was much stronger than the previous 5 Golden Guardians combined. Cliff exclaimed, "This is the Golden King's warlord. Be careful, he is stronger than dozens of Golden Guardians." After a pause, Cliff somewhat panicked and said, "It stands to reason that the Golden Warlord will only appear on the 4th floor after the 6th round. He is an opponent that is almost impossible to defeat. His appearance often means the end of the arena's winning streak. Even the treasure hunters who can go deep into the 7th floor would find it difficult to defeat him. How could he come out now?" Wang Lu snappily said, "Of course it's that wisp of remnant soul that's looking for fun. To be able to change the rules of the treasure house so casually, besides Golden King himself, who else could it be? However, there was no time to care about that, because the Golden Warlord has already moved. If he doesn't move, then he will be like a landslide or tsunami. As a powerful enemy whose quality was far superior to the Golden Guardians, the Golden Warlord took a step forward, and the entire arena suddenly trembled. Endless power gathered in his body, as if it was about to erupt like lava. However, at this time, Wang Lu's figure fiercely rushed forward. His indestructible 3-foot sword defense just happened to block in front of the Golden Warlord. The Golden Warlord suddenly couldn't take the second step. With a rather awkward posture, he raised his sword and fiercely collided with Wang Lu's sword of Mount Kuan. Boom! Without any fancy moves, the two swords buzzed, and Wang Lu's bones trembled. This Golden Warlord's strength was not inferior to that of Taoist Master King Pil, who specialized in body cultivation in Royal Soldier Sect. Encountering such an opponent, there were many forms, but the less specialized magical ability couldn't be used. However, now that they were fighting as a team, Wang Lu didn't need to play the role of controlling the field. After taking a deep breath to relieve the numbness in his limbs, Wang Lu once again wielded the sword of Mount Kuan, firmly blocking the overseer in place, making it difficult for him to move even an inch. This Gold Warlord was even stronger than Sir Haddock in close combat. Apart from himself, anyone else would be in danger. However, with Wang Lu's firm support in the front, Lu Li and the others went all out to attack. Flying swords, sharp fangs, and lightning left all kinds of scars on the Golden Warlord's armor. The defense of the Warlord's armor was almost against the heaven. Although it was shaken by the attacks, it never fell. Just as the battle situation gradually became clear, the Golden Warlord roared, swept the sword in his hand away from Wang Lu, and then immediately pulled out the scepter on his waist. With a flash of golden light, the Warlord's scepter lit up with a strange light. Wang Lu felt a strong throbbing in his heart, and his body involuntarily operated his non-phase immortal heart to suppress the shock. What the hell? A control skill. Moreover, the control power was so strong. No wonder it was a team-wiping artifact. If not for the non-phase methods against the heaven and ignoring control, it would be strange if the most important character of the team didn't change sides. However, while Wang Lu was spared, someone behind him was hit. With a mournful howl, Quan Zhouhua bit the nearby Lu Li with its big bloody mouth. This attack came without warning, fast and ruthless. Fortunately, Lu Li's brilliant sword heart had a keen intuition for the surrounding changes. As soon as the warning flashed in her mind, the girl floated away like a light smoke and immediately warned Wang Lu. Senior brother, Hua Hua is hungry. Even I want to eat it. Isn't it time to eat? Actually, I'm also hungry. Hearing this from the front, Wang Lu wanted to vomit blood. Feed yourself some brain platinum first. Little Bai, you cooperate with Lu Li to suppress that stupid dog. Protect yourself first. No need to be distracted. Pay attention to your position. Don't get bitten by that stupid dog. Bai Shixian replied, yes. Although Lu Li was inwardly confused, she was very obedient. Cooperating with Bai Shixian, they urged the cold sword Qi to freeze Quan Zhouhua's movement until it became sluggish. Thus, her earth-shattering close combat power could not be displayed at all. During this period, Wang Lu single-handedly challenged the overseer, not hesitating to injure himself by using the nameless sword. The Golden Overseer single-handedly held his scepter, making it difficult for him to move. Thus, under Wang Lu's desperate attack, he was forced to put away his scepter and once again hold his sword to suppress Wang Lu. Then, the battle entered a stable rhythm. In the front, Wang Lu was as steady as Mount Tai, while Lu Li and the others went all out to deal damage. When the Golden Overseer felt the danger, he wielded his scepter and controlled the person behind Wang Lu. That scepter had an irresistible power in the treasure house. Except for Wang Lu, no one could escape. If it were an ordinary team, they would have been flustered and would have been wiped out. However, Wang Lu's stance was too stable, and the ability of the several people behind him was also very outstanding. The battle proceeded smoothly, without any surprise or danger. As time went by, the Overseer's wounds grew more and more, and his struggling strength gradually weakened. When the Golden Overseer lifted his scepter for the 5th time, because of his leg injury, he staggered, which exposed a huge flaw. Lu Li took a step forward, and the Skybreaker flew out of her hand and thrusted forward. "Hey big guy, watch your back." Under the heavy helmet of the Golden Overseer, his orange eyes slightly flashed, seemingly wondering why he should watch his back when there was a flying sword coming at him. The next moment, the flying sword penetrated his chest. Unexpectedly, that indestructible golden armor couldn't block it at all. In the blink of an eye, the sword pierced through his back, and at the same time, a dark rain of blood burst out. "So, this is the meaning of watch your back?" The Golden Overseer gawked for a moment. His orange eyes gradually dimmed, and then with a loud crash, his body turned into fine sand. Following the defeat of the Golden Overseer, the arena was suddenly filled with earth-shaking cheers. However, as far as the eye could see, there was clearly no audience in the stands, so the cheers were really horrifying. However, along with the cheers, gold coins, gems, and other things continuously flew from the stands, as if the audience was satisfied and crazily rewarded them. Regardless of whether the audience was a human or a ghost, these rewards were all genuine gold and silver. Wang Lu waved his hand, signaling Lu Li to collect them. After a moment, the spoils of war were tabulated. Not to mention gold and jewels, there were more than 100 magic coins, not to mention that some of them contained magical power and were very valuable equipment. It was just that, at present, there was no time to carefully appraise them. In short, the reward for passing this round was really generous. However, just as everyone was collecting the spoils of war and preparing to go to the next round, the third round of battle began. 2 platinum figures gradually appeared at the other end of the arena. How come there are still more? Cliff was inexplicably surprised. Just now, after Wang Lu and the others defeated the Golden Overseer with Against the Heaven and Earth, he thought that the arena would condense a golden key and open the next level. Unexpectedly, they still haven't passed this round? When did the standard of the king's treasure house become so strict? Was it really the illusion of the Golden King? Having no time to think about it, the Nightwalker immediately went into stealth mode. According to the agreement, he didn't need to participate in the battle. As long as he could protect himself, that was enough. In fact, with the cooperation of Wang Lu and the others just now, he couldn't intervene. A moment later, the 2 figures gradually became clear. One was a knight in a bright silver armor, and the other was a priest in a snow-white robe. Both of them had an oval emblem on their chest, symbolizing the endless source of holy light. Holy light religion? Who are you? Both sides simultaneously exclaimed in disbelief. Because no one thought that they would meet other treasure hunters in the 4th level of the arena. Is this the winning streak reward? Interesting. Wang Lu's reaction was the fastest. While the opponent was still in a state of shock, he has already made his move. His non-phase sword chi spread all over his body, forming a 3-feet sword defense, and then he directly pounced on the silver-armored knight. Before the enemy's strength was known, he must be the team's strongest insurance. The silver-armored knight was caught off guard and was pushed back by Wang Lu. Together with the priest, their formation was in a mess. Damn it, how could there be a yellow-skinned bastard here? The knight flew into a rage out of shame. He loudly cursed as he regained his center of gravity and summoned his silver holy sword in his palm. The priest behind him, on the other hand, used the emblem of holy light to activate the divine protection spell that he had stored. Then, he patted his partner's shoulder and cursed. The idiot in charge of the assessment must have been blind. How could they let bastards in after the 3rd level? Heaven purify him. The knight named Heaven immediately waved his silver holy sword. The blessing from his bloodline and holy light made it burst out with amazing power. The holy sword danced, and its power was not much inferior to the Golden Overseer's. Wang Lu blocked it with his sword of Mount Kuan and felt a scorching force spreading along the sword. "TSK, is this holy light? It's disgusting." Compared to the direct brute force of the Golden Overseer, the knight's slash power was a bit weaker, but it was particularly difficult to deal with. The holy light energy that spread into his body contained a disturbing element. "Little White, pay attention to support. Lu Li, don't get too close. Stupid dog, pay attention to my rhythm. The next moment, Wang Lu suddenly changed his pace and rushed forward with a tough stance. The knight's reaction was extremely fast. He immediately saw through Wang Lu's intention. He immediately released a holy seal on his sword, and then waved his silver holy sword with all his strength, trying to block Wang Lu. This slash was aimed at the vital point, completely a lose-lose situation, forcing him to save himself. However, Wang Lu didn't care at all. He forcibly withstood this sword with his body, and while his body was being corroded by the holy light, he took the opportunity to rush toward the priest behind the knight. Everyone pay attention, let's heal him. Damn it! The knight was horrified because his sword strike was useless, and Wang Lu immediately broke through it. He never thought that someone could use their body to resist his purifying holy silver holy sword. That was the most toxic energy for the heresy bastards. It was a power invented by holy light religion to purify the heresy, so it should be successful in every endeavor. Of course, there was indeed no shortage of unusually powerful individuals among the yellow-skinned bastards. For example, the one who committed the heinous crime in Storm City was a legendary-level powerhouse, and one person could easily destroy a country. His own purifying holy seal naturally wouldn't be effective against him. However, the young man in front of him was obviously not that strong. Otherwise, with just a wave of his hand, he would have been turned into ashes. How could it take so many rounds? It was just that he didn't expect his defensive ability to be so amazing. No, I can't let him succeed. Haiwen clenched his teeth and released a holy flame from his body to wrap around Wang Lu, trying to block his charge. The priest also cast a holy shield as a defense against the charge. In the revelation of the holy light, among the yellow-skinned bastards in front of him, Wang Lu was the most threatening. TSK. With the holy shield in front and the holy flame behind, Wang Lu's charge had to stop. The resistance of the two high-order professions of holy light religion was astonishingly great. However, they spent too much attention on Wang Lu, which led them to ignore the opponent that they should not ignore. Roar! With a howl, the demon wolf Fenrir suddenly appeared behind the priest and swallowed him and the dozens of holy shields on his body. Then, with a sway of its body, it digested the priest until nothing was left. Devouring demonic wolf? The holy knight recognized the identity of Fenrir and immediately knew that the situation was hopeless. The priest was killed in seconds. In any case, it was impossible for him to survive under the siege of so many people. In that case, the holy knight pinched the holy light emblem on his chest and madly roared, "Accept eternal torture in the sea of holy light, yellow-skinned bastards." You want to blow yourself up? Feeling the crazy and turbulent holy light energy, Wang Lu didn't dare to hesitate. If the holy knight really blew himself up, he would be fine, but the teammates behind him would be finished. Therefore, he took a step forward, threw the holy knight to the ground, and then firmly pressed him to the ground. The next moment, the tsunami-like power of holy light ignited from the holy knight's body and crazily gushed out. However, most of it was suppressed by Wang Lu, and only a small amount of energy escaped. Senior brother? Wang Lu, are you crazy? Behind him, the concerned voice of his teammates was a little vague under the burning of the holy light. For a moment, Wang Lu only felt dizzy, and there was no part of his body that didn't hurt, as if he was poisoned and about to die. This time, the injury was serious, and there were already some injuries to his muscles and bones, but Wang Lu couldn't care so much anymore. He was the leader and the most important shield of the team. When there was danger, he was duty-bound to stand in front. After a while, Wang Lu slowly stood up and felt that the injury had begun to heal, but the speed was slow. Obviously, there was a special component in the holy light, and he needed to slowly adjust it. However, he had finally passed this hurdle. However, just as Wang Lu was ready to welcome the golden key to clearing the fourth floor, a dull voice came down from above. Who dares to trespass into the holy land of our sect? Wang Lu's thoughts flashed, and he had already guessed the identity of the speaker. Damn, the administrator came out. Chapter 292. The power of holy light religion in Taba City was monstrous, and their biggest reliance was that they had an administrator in the king's treasure house, which held many special privileges. The specific content of these privileges was the top secret of holy light religion, which outsiders were not privy to. However, holy light religion, after all, did not completely close the king's treasure house. After being open for so many years, the outside world has gradually summed up some rules. First of all, the administrator's authority was not omnipotent. The owner of the treasure house was still Golden King, and from the fact that Golden King's illusion would appear in the treasure house, it could be seen that Golden King has not given up the sovereignty of the treasure house, even if he was dead. The administrator of holy light religion was only recognized by the treasure house and temporarily exercised the administrative authority. To put it bluntly, he was just working for the treasure house. Therefore, it was impossible for him to unscrupulously modify the rules of the treasure house. Otherwise, wouldn't it be better for him to directly take out all the treasures and give them to Holy Light Religion? The administrator's authority was strictly limited, and he must follow the basic rules of the treasure house. For example, the opening of the king's treasure house was partly because Golden King wanted to show off his wealth to the world, so anyone could come in and could not be stopped. Of course, in fact, Holy Light Religion had already set up an interception outside the treasure house. At the same time, Golden King hoped to take this opportunity to recruit warriors. Therefore, only those who met the conditions of Golden King were qualified to take away the treasure. Another example would be that the tests given to treasure seekers in every treasure vault had to be traceable. They couldn't just set up an ancient dragon at the simplest test location on the first floor, and the reward was a copper coin. However, on this basis, the administrator's autonomous authority was also very terrifying. For example, on the second level, the enemies that the treasure hunters encountered were not fixed. They could be golden guardians or other treasure vault guardians of similar strength. However, similar strength did not mean that the difficulty of dealing with them was also similar. For example, several guardians with very strange and difficult-to-defend abilities were enough to give people a big headache. At this time, the role of the administrator manifested. If he did not want the treasure hunters to pass, he could send the most difficult guardian and reward them with the harshest standard, so that the gains and losses were completely disproportionate. In addition, as an administrator, there were too many tricks that could be played. Therefore, he might as well put it bluntly. If you were targeted by the administrator, then no matter how great your ability was, it would be useless. However, the manager's energy was limited after all. He had to eat and sleep, so he couldn't keep an eye on every corner of the treasure vault at all times. In fact, according to the previous information of the Brotherhood, the Holy Light Religion administrator would only pay attention to the registered treasure hunters of Holy Light Religion. As for those who entered through the Brotherhood's entrance, he didn't bother with them. After all, the Brotherhood only controlled the entrances to the first and second floors. Even if they did something in these two floors, it was not worth paying attention to. As for those who could pass through the third floor and beyond, the difficulty was too high. Even if one did appear, it would be a bargain for the time being. Therefore, when Wang Lu entered the treasury, he didn't pay much attention to the administrator. Now that he saw the administrator descending from the sky, he was shocked. Am I so radiant that I will be the center of attention wherever I go? Aya was equally surprised. She said via primordial spirit, "Isn't it obvious? You killed both of them. F***ck, they're just two small fries. Is there a need to go this far? Bastard." Aya was dumbfounded. Didn't you read the advanced instruction manual that I wrote for you? Sorry, I prefer to read the instructions with pictures. You? Aya remembered that in order to write the finished product within the deadline for Wang Lu's reference, she locked herself in the dark room in the kitchen, racking her brains to write the words, but the result was unexpectedly. In her entire life, even her opponents and enemies had never looked down on her like that. Listen, even if they are not high order, those two are, after all, professions. On our side, unless it's an extremely rare situation, professions must have a bloodline inheritance. Ordinary people, even if they cultivate for a lifetime, could not master the power of a profession, which is a very rare and precious talent. Because even if the potential of a profession is limited, as long as they have the bloodline of a profession, it means that their descendants may become powerful professions. Not to mention that those two people's level is almost the same as yours, so how could you say they're a bastard? You killed two professions of Holy Light Religion in the treasure vault, so of course, it would alarm the administrator. Wang Lu sighed. In short, you killed the young one and the old one came? Then there's nothing to say. The decisive battle has been advanced. Aya, you should also prepare to make your move. In the first few floors, no matter what the situation was, Aya always looked on with cold eyes and never made her move. Because her spirit of the brave departed body has not been completely stabilized. Although the power of her move was amazing, the side effect was also big. As a former Unity stage expert, Aya's power must be used at the critical moment, and that was now. Very well, according to the agreement, I will listen to your instructions and become the sharp blade in your hand. After ending the conversation with Aya, Wang Lu entered the battle preparation. Although he hasn't seen the real body of the administrator, time must not be wasted. He must, as soon as possible, Integrate the whole team's strength. Speaking of which, the team's lineup was quite perfect. He played the role of protection and insurance, Bai Shixian was the healer, and Lu Li, Quan Zhouhua, and Aya were all superclass damage dealers. At the same time, there was also a quite versatile Nightwalker as a foreign aid. As long as his god-level commander performed well, even a god could be pushed down. Sorry, I have to go. When Wang Lu was ready to make the pre-battle mobilization, he was stabbed in the back. Cliff somewhat ashamedly said, "My identity is special, so I can't directly participate in the confrontation with the administrator." T. What the hell are you doing? Deep Earth City and Holy Light Religion are irreconcilable enemies. Yet you don't even dare to declare war? Why don't you shave your head and then write a map to expand your territory? I'm sorry, my identity is not only Sir Haddock's deputy, but also a senior member of the Brotherhood. This time, I brought you here using my relationship with the Brotherhood. If there's a fierce conflict, I'm sorry, I can't harm my own people. With that, Cliff turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared without a trace. T disappeared? Cliff's non-combat attrition was indeed unexpected, but from the beginning, Wang Lu didn't seriously consider him as a fighting force. If he disappeared, then so be it. That way, he would have less to worry about during the fight. Aya, I'll have to trouble you to make the first move. I heard that you and Holy Light Religion have been enemies for many years. Presumably, you fought against each other a lot. So show me your combat experience. Humph, very well. I've seen enough of your performance along the way. As she spoke, Aya suddenly lifted her gray cloak, revealing her full armor. The heavy plate armor condensed from highly pure magic power, the former proof of royal power, the symbol of the knight's good moral character, the legendary holy sword in the stone. The number was not much, but for the former Night King, such an armor was enough. Show your true face, Golden King's Treasure House Administrator. Aya's eyes were clear and piercingly cold as she loudly issued a declaration of war. Since it was a fight, it must be done in an open and above-board manner. This was Aya's style. However, just as Aya revealed her true face, the hidden administrator suddenly let out a soft cry. This smell seems familiar. Could it be the remnant of Breton Dragon Clan? Unexpectedly, the Purification War still failed to sweep away the remnant of Dragon Clan, and even let them take the initiative to enter the Holy Land. Upon hearing this, Aya's complexion suddenly changed. Purification War? What is that? Sweep away the remnant? What did you do? In the past, the fall of the country was no doubt due to the role of foreign enemies, but the main reason was the internal rebellion. Aya boasted that she was erudite and knowledgeable, and her wisdom was far better than ordinary people, even surpassing most of the kings. Perhaps there were some shortcomings in internal governance, but in confronting foreign enemies, she had never tasted defeat. Even if the elite troops under her command were greatly damaged after experiencing the Civil War, she was confident that they would not easily lose to outsiders. How could, Humph, it seems like I hid outside during the purification, allowing you to escape with your life. Unfortunately, you don't know the difference between life and death, and now you come to my door. Aya angrily said, "Show your true face, Administrator, speak clearly, what is the Purification War?" "Ha ha ha, if you want to know, then come and find me." After a series of crazy laughter, the Administrator was completely silent. At the other end of the arena, a golden key slowly condensed, as well as the door to the next floor. "Don't run away, fight me fair and square. Don't you want to purify the bloodline of Breton Dragon Clan? I am the legitimate successor of the Dragon Clan. Come and purify me. If you can do it, then come and do it." With that, Aya furiously brandished her holy sword. A sharp sword light flashed, and the entire arena was divided into two. Witnessing this sword that was enough to tear the dimension apart, Wang Lu's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. "What the, Aya, your big move is empty." Aya turned her head, and her green eyes seemed to be ignited with fire. Wang Lu immediately clapped his hands. "Empty is good. Empty is imposing. You have to overwhelm the opponent with imposing manner." "Aya, you're so great. I'm your brain-dead fan." Aya said in a sinking voice. "I'm not in the mood to joke now. Previously, I only knew that my country was torn apart and was ruled by a new king, and Holy Light Religion played an important role. But I never knew that they actually dared to purify the bloodline of Breton Dragon Clan. How could they dare to do such a heinous thing? Wang Lu shrugged. Even you, a scholar, don't know about it. How could I know? Although I'm the top student of Spirit Sword Sect, I have my own specialization. The only one who might know is that Cliff just fled without a fight. If you must ask, we can only rely on our guesses. Seeing that Aya was silent, Wang Lu tried to put forward a constructive opinion. Is your Breton Dragon clan the woman who robbed the Pope of Holy Light religion? Aya fiercely glared at him but didn't speak. Bai Shixian said, Senior brother, I heard that Holy Light religion forbids marriage. That's robbing a lover. In short, isn't the principle the same? Aya said, as far as I know, Breton Dragon clan has never had any dealings with Holy Light religion. Perhaps after I left, my descendants. But in any case, there are only a few cases of bloodline purification in the history of the continent. Could it be a crime of colluding with evil? But, seeing that Aya was so anxious that her internal organs were burning, Wang Lu sighed and patted her on the shoulder. It's useless to guess blindly here. Didn't that person say that if we want to see him, we have to go to the next floor? He must have prepared the trap, waiting for us to die. Hee, this actually gives me a clue. If this administrator can't rely on the king's treasure house, he wouldn't even have the courage to fight us. If that's the case, doesn't that mean he has the confidence to win? Aya said, let's go to the 5th floor. No matter what the truth is, I must dig it out. With that, Aya picked up the key and stepped into the entrance to the next floor. T. I haven't finished yet. From another point of view, the other party is so confident in the 5th floor because he's clearly not afraid of you. Really? Wang Lu helplessly shook his head. With this kind of brain, how could he be the Night King? With that, he also stepped into the 5th floor of the treasure house. Chapter 293. The 5th floor was a big world. A real big world. From the 4th floor arena to the 5th floor, Wang Lu envisioned countless possibilities. For example, the most stringent guardian, the most tricky and strange trap, or the Holy Light religion's Punisher. For this reason, Wang Lu has also fully thought of countermeasures. Powerful guardian, Holy Light religion's Punisher. No matter what. In any case, it was Aya who rushed to the front. When she set out, her anger was off the charts. Obviously, she had unleashed her ultimate move without limit plus her tyrant body. With her former Unity stage strength, she should be able to deal with it. Then he would take his teammates down to harvest the harvest. However, after seeing the true appearance of the 5th floor, Wang Lu took a deep breath and had to admire the cleverness of the administrator. The 5th floor was a big world, a blank big world. Under their feet was a piece of soft soil, and behind them was a thick wall of unknown height and length. Looking around, there was only endless darkness. Seeing this scene, without the need for other people to explain, Wang Lu already knew the administrator's trick. Come out. Don't you want to purify me? Then come out and fight me. Why are you hiding? Do you deserve to call yourself the people of the Holy Light? It was obvious that Aya's anger had soared to the heavens, and there was no trace of her usual calmness. The holy sword in his hand flickered with a flickering light. Although it looked mysterious and magical, Wang Lu felt that the real thing that was shaken by this sword light was Aya's heart. And for Aya, a calm heart was far more important than a boiling fighting spirit. So he gave up on this hipster talk and changed it to a straightforward one. Aya was wasted. Calm down. Wang Lu promptly appeared behind Aya and pressed her shoulder, trying to stop her from going berserk. However, he found that the girl's strength was far stronger than his. When his palm touched her shoulder, it was as if he had touched a boiling flame, which caused his body to violently tremble. What the? I don't want to have sex with you here. Moreover, there's no car here. Seeing that Aya was still burning with anger, Wang Lu also became annoyed. That's enough, dead chef. You promised me to be obedient just now, but do you think my sharp blade is bullshit? Aya's whole body trembled, and her imposing manner immediately dropped. Sorry, I was too impulsive. Alright, what do we do now? Wang Lu said, can your dimensional sword do it again and slash this space? Directly cut through space? Aya was surprised. Using such a crude method? However, if I was at my peak, I might be able to give it a try, but now I am severely lacking in power. The Golden King's treasure house itself is also an incomparably powerful legendary level enchantment. One must have the power of legendary level or above in order to break it. Moreover, the level of a beginner legendary is far from enough. Then there's nothing we can do. Wang Lu shrugged and said helplessly, "The other party is very smart and chose the most ingenious method to deal with us." After Aya calmed down, she regained her ability to think. "You mean lock us up here?" Yes, he used the administrator's authority to arrange some impossible tasks and then use someone else to do the dirty work. There's no need to waste the power of holy light religion. Aya asked, "Would the rules of the king's treasure house allow such a thing?" Of course not. The answer to the question was a rumbling voice that came from the sky above them. It was the administrator who was hiding behind the scenes. "According to the rules, I need to explain to you the conditions to pass this level." With that, a bright red rose appeared in front of Wang Lu and the others. "Your task is to collect such a flower, and the condition to pass this level is 999 roses. 999 roses. Wang Lu curiously reached out his hand to try to pick the rose in mid-air, but his finger touched the void. The rose dissipated like mist. "It's not a simple rose, is it? Humph, this is something you need to explore by yourself." With that, the voice paused. "Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, if you want to take revenge, try to escape from here, as long as you can do it. Hiding behind the scenes, is this the style of your holy light religion?" Aya restrained her anger and coldly said, "Don't you have zero tolerance for heretics? I, the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, am here. Don't you dare to come out and see me?" "Why should I deliberately come out? If you can't escape from here, you're no different than a dead person. What's the difference between trapping you here and sending you to the underworld? Holy light religion people don't even have the courage to fight fair and square." Unfortunately, no matter how Aya questioned, the administrator no longer replied. "Give up, they obviously want to shrink their eggs. What can you do? Besides, what they said is very reasonable. If we're trapped here and can't get out, wouldn't we be dead in the eyes of the world?" Wang Lu sighed. "Let's carefully consider the method to pass this level. What exactly are 999 roses?" "Hey, someone wants roses?" Lu Li suddenly interjected, "I have some here, how many do you want?" Everyone's eyes turned to her. Lu Li suddenly seemed a bit embarrassed. She timidly put her hand into her mustard seed bag and fished out a few flour cakes. "This is... Sister Ling made it for me. I can't find anything to complain about." Wang Lu was silent for a moment and then helplessly said, "You guys come on, spit this foodie to death." "Senior brother, you don't have to be so strict with Lu Li. Actually, we might as well give it a try." Bai Shixian said, reached out to take Lu Li's rose cake, broke it open, took out a petal, and held it in her hand. A moment later, she opened her hand, and a delicate and juicy rose grew strong and healthy in her palm. According to common sense, this place is deathly still. Let alone roses. There's not even a single weed. Using these roses as the condition is indeed very harsh. Therefore, the condition to pass this level might really be roses. With that, Bai Shixian inserted the rose into the soil under her feet and then leaned down to gently blow the petals. The plump and sturdy petals scattered like dandelions, then each took root in the soil and quickly grew. Not long after, a beautiful field of flowers appeared in front of everyone. 999 roses. There should be enough. Bai Shixian gently exhaled. Using the law of the Western continent to use the mountain spirit spell was somewhat strenuous. However, in the eyes of other people, this was no different from a miracle. Although the spell to accelerate the growth of plants was not rare in the Western continent, and even the brilliant druids had this ability, but to be able to do it like Bai Shixian was a skill that only a legendary druid could have. And this was also the unique advantage of her immortal beast body. Well, it seems like it won't work. After waiting for a while in the flower field, they didn't see any change in their surroundings. Therefore, they knew that Bai Shixian's attempt had failed. Ha ha ha. Although it's a bit belated, but seriously, this is the Golden King's treasure house. In the past, the Golden King who conquered and ruled the world with his invincible force, how could he be obsessed with roses? It's hard to imagine such a thing. Wang Lu said with a smile. Aya frowned. So, in your opinion, what do you mean by roses? There are too many possibilities, but in my opinion, the first possibility is the collection. Wang Lu explained, Roses should be the spoils of war that can only be obtained through special conditions, such as defeating a certain monster, a guardian, or passing a certain trap. Most of them are related to fighting. Golden King is a king who admires martial arts. But the strange thing is, there's no trap here, and there's no guardian, so how can we collect them? Even if the administrator deliberately does something bad, shouldn't the basic rules of the treasure house be followed? Then, considering that the final opponent of the 4th level is the Holy Knight and Priest of Holy Light Religion, I think I can assume that the condition to pass this level is to defeat the Holy Light Religion's treasure hunters and collect roses from their corpses. Roses can also be regarded as flowers dyed with blood. In this case, as long as he doesn't send his believers in, we will never be able to collect the roses. Of course, since this is contrary to the basic rules of the treasure house, 1 or 2 people will be sent in every 3 to 5 years. But 999 roses, I don't know when we can collect them. Then, Aya asked, "Give me some time, I will adjust my strength. Although I'm not too sure, but if the stone sword goes all out, perhaps it can break this space." Wang Lu snorted. "The price is your soul flying away? Aya, you're also a king, so don't work so hard with brute force. Although the current situation is a bit difficult, we still have a flexible way." Flexible way? Wang Lu smiled. "It's actually very simple. It's just that you can't remember it. Do you remember what we encountered on the 2nd level? The Golden King's phantom?" Aya suddenly realized. "We have received the invitation of Golden King to go deeper into the treasure house to please his distinguished guests by completing all kinds of tests. However, now there's a worker who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth abusing his power to stop us on the 5th level. What do you think will happen next?" Aya slightly hesitated. But Golden King has been dead for many years, so what's left here is just a phantom. Even if it's a phantom, it's still the phantom of Golden King. Do you think the Holy Light Religion Administrator or the Phantom of Golden King has a higher status? So do you think Golden King will help us? Wang Lu said, "Of course not, why would he help us? But, what if it's us who help him? For example, in this case, instead of saying that Golden King helped us through the difficulties, it's better to say that we help Golden King eliminate the unqualified administrator. We are the distinguished guests of Golden King, yet the administrator actually dares to detain us here. This kind of disobedience to the will of Golden King's subjects cannot be redeemed even if they die 100 times. Wang Lu said and then looked up at the sky. "Your Majesty, what do you think?" A moment later, a burst of pleasant laughter came from the sky. "Ha ha ha ha, you really know how to talk, bastard." Chapter 294. Greetings, Your Majesty. Upon hearing the voice in the sky, Wang Lu gently bowed and then told his teammates through primordial spirit, "Everyone, don't open your mouth, just let me talk to him. Golden King's situation is special. Your interruption will only worsen the situation." Aya subconsciously asked, "Huh?" Because the efficiency of primordial spirit was extremely high, Wang Lu patiently explained, "Think about it. He's clearly in a bad situation. Now is the time when his heart is fragile. What if you, this bunch of big and rough people, annoy him?" "Wait a minute, big and rough refers to me?" Aya was shocked and angry at the same time. "Hey, your focus is obviously not right. Take good care of Golden King. No matter what, he's your peer." "Yes, what's wrong with him?" "Ha ha ha, you don't believe me when I say you're big and rough. Think about it, what kind of person is Golden King? He wanted to dominate the world, he was talented and bold, but his personality was polarized. To loyal and outstanding officials, he was generous, but to anyone who dared to disobey him, regardless of whether they were rich or poor, he would punish them in the most cruel and merciless way. So, why would such a king tolerate the existence of Holy Light Religion? Has his temperament changed after 10,000 years? In other words, he's powerless? It's obvious. If he really has control over the treasure house, would he allow so many people to treasure? No matter how much he flaunts his wealth and displays his generosity, is he sick to let a group of treasure hunters from all over the continent who have no loyalty to him or even respect him take away his treasures? It's clear that he's only a wisp of remnant soul, powerless to do anything that happens on the continent. This is really unbelievable. Aya shook her head. Although she didn't agree with Golden King's ruling philosophy, She also admired his political and martial arts skills. Unexpectedly, after 10,000 years, the former overlord was so miserable. What's so unbelievable about it? Are you in a better situation than him? Aren't you also a soul of the brave departed? Moreover, you're a penniless soul of the brave departed, while he still has a treasure house. Alas, in short, this is probably your occupational disease, right? You're the occupational disease. In short, Golden King is at a low point in his life. If there is no savior from the stars to help him, he probably won't be able to recover. But in the end, he was the overlord of the world. As a king, his dignity and aloofness made it impossible for him to tolerate insults, and it was also impossible for him to accept sympathy from his inferiors. Therefore, we must be careful when we talk to him. On the one hand, we must be polite, but on the other hand, we cannot be too attentive and make him feel that we are sympathizing with him. A king did not need sympathy, only admiration and loyalty. Only a professional adventurer with a meticulous heart like me can handle it. You big and burly people should just shut up. Well, I'm going to talk to Golden King. You just need to pay attention to maintaining your role as a beauty. Don't say a word and show an infinitely beautiful puzzled expression. Through primordial spirit sound transmission, Wang Lu ended his commentary, and then the next moment, a sudden voice rang out. Just say it here, you bastard. Aren't you well prepared? What the hell, Golden King? This time, even Wang Lu was taken aback. This primordial spirit voice transmission was a very private method. It could be interfered with and interrupted, but if one wanted to cut into it, it would require a great ability. At least, on Spirit Sword Mountain, only the elders of Heavenly Sword Hall could do it. Oh, that's right, Golden King was a legendary powerhouse, so it was not difficult for him to eavesdrop on the conversation of several juniors. In short, if he heard it, then so be it. One must always look forward. Hello, Your Majesty. Humph, just now you were very happy, you bastard. Ha ha ha, since you have heard it yourself, do you have any advice? Bastard, are you really tired of living? Otherwise, would you accept my apology? Alas, I don't want to do this, but since it's been made clear, then let's be straightforward. Your Majesty Golden King, I need your help, and we are also willing to offer our strength for you to use. It's a fair trade, there are gains and losses. Although our strength is meager, it should be of use to you now. Wang Lu tried to change his tone to persuade the other party, but Golden King just laughed wildly. Ha 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 ha, self-righteous bastard, do I need your strength? Bastards like you who haven't even crossed the threshold of high order, there are as many as I want in my country. In reality, Wang Lu sighed and said to Aya and the others, see, this is what I call glass heart. Obviously, he's already down and out like this, but he still wants to save face. Aya exclaimed, hey, you're talking in real life. I'm sorry, I forgot, but it doesn't matter, Golden King is inside his primordial spirit, so he can't hear it. You're lying to yourself. Bastard, if you want to go out, there's only one way. In reality, Golden King just happened to interrupt Wang Lu's self-deception. Wang Lu said, Your Majesty, I know you must have a way. Ha ha ha, how could a mere administrator disobey the Supreme Golden King? As long as you open your mouth, I think there are exits everywhere. Humph. Ignorant bastard. The rules set by me are absolute. Wang Lu smiled. Even the rule maker can't violate it? Don't tease me. How can there be a ruler who respects the law? Yes, if I want to, it's not difficult for you to leave. But why should I help you? Do you want to break the rules set by me for a few bastards? Listen, if you want to leave, you have to collect 999 roses according to my rules. As you guessed, the rose must be soaked with the soul of middle-order profession or above. So, go and kill 999 middle-order professions for me. This place is deserted. Where do you want us to find 999 middle-order professions? Could it be? Wang Lu said, looked at Aya, Luli, and the others around him, and then asked, do you want me and them to give birth to 999 children, and then train them into middle-order professions and then sacrifice them to you? Aya said, Wang Lu, what nonsense are you talking about? Luli said, give birth to children? Give birth to children. Ha ha ha, senior brother, do you really want to give birth to a lot of children? I like children very much. Give birth to them for me to play with, okay? Wang Lu counted with his fingers. If that's the case, Aya, Lu Li, and Bai Shixian can be used as human cauldrons for a total of 3 people. Not considering miscarriage, premature death, and other factors, each of them would give birth to an average of 333 children. According to the calculation of 10 months of pregnancy, it would take more than 200 years. Tisk, it's better than staying here forever. So, Golden King, do you mean we have to wait for more than 200 years? Golden King was silent for a long time, and then finally said, "You're really a whimsical bastard. In my country, I need a comedian like you." After a pause, Golden King said, "When did I say you should collect 999 roses here?" Wang Lu was stunned. "But if we don't collect enough..." "Hey, you mean release for medical treatment?" Golden King said, "Leave a part of your soul here, and the rest, I can let you go." With that, a purple portal opened in the darkness. Through this portal, a part of your soul will be harvested as evidence that you are still here. When you have finished collecting, you will be transmitted to this place from any entrance that you enter my treasure house. This portal can last for 100 years. After 100 years, I don't need to say more. Wang Lu nodded. "Thank you, Your Majesty, for your grace." "Humph, my grace is not for nothing. I have a condition. How to collect 999 roses, you whimsical bastard. I don't need to remind you, do I?" "Of course, Your Majesty. Please rest assured." "Aha, I see the light of day again." With a cheerful cheer from Wang Lu, the group of people left the purple portal and appeared outside Taba City. The warm sunshine sprinkled on their faces, making them look exceptionally warm. Leaving from the dead silence of the darkness, they all felt that their bodies seemed to be a little lighter. Wang Lu said with a sinister smile, "The weight of the soul." Aya glared at him angrily, but when she turned around and saw that Lu Li and the others were carefree, she had to admit that her worry was purely superfluous. In fact, Golden King's portal was indeed mysterious. Obviously, a part of his soul had been separated, but there was no difference when he moved. According to legend, Golden King was the closest mortal to God, and his control of the soul was far above anyone else. Such a method, even after thousands of years, was still amazing. However, she still had a question. Will we be discovered if we leave like this? I mean, can Golden King's ability hide from the administrator? I always feel that Golden King's ability to control the treasure house is very low. Although he appears calm, but Wang Lu lightly said, "He is Golden King." I was curious. Do you respect Golden King? I have respect for any strong person, and Golden King is undoubtedly the most powerful person. If possible, I would like to see what he looked like when he was alive. So, what are you going to do with the 999 roses? Do you still need to ask? Holy Light Religion and Golden King are mortal enemies. Since they want to kill middle-order professions, of course they want to kill the Holy Light Religion swindlers. However, 1,000 middle-order professions is not a lot, but it's not that easy to gather. In 9 regions, middle-order professions should correspond to Foundation Establishment Stage, right? 1,000 Foundation Establishment Stage cultivators. Even Holy Light Religion is not easy to gather. But I have an idea. I don't know if you agree with it, Aya? What? Previously, the administrator mentioned the Purification War. According to him, it's a war between Holy Light Religion and your country and Breton Dragon Clan. Moreover, judging from the tone of voice, it should have happened not too long ago. It shouldn't be that easy to purify your blood, right? Aya, I haven't asked you before, but what was the strength of your country in its heyday? Although it can't be compared with Golden King's country, in terms of military power, it's one of the most powerful in the world. Aya's heroism was hard to conceal. There are more than 100 senior professions, and there are thousands of middle-order professions. In 9 regions, no mortal country can match it. It's a powerful force close to the 5 uniques of the Wanxian League. Breton Dragon Clan has an ancient bloodline that has been passed down for tens of thousands of years. Their branches are flourishing, and their powerhouses come forth in large numbers. Oh? I didn't know that you, Aya, can give birth so easily. What? Nothing. I just want to say that if Holy Light Religion wants to destroy such a bloodline, in addition to expecting the peaceful evolution of your Dragon Clan bloodline, they have to come up with an absolutely crushing military force. At the same time, after the extermination, They have to station a strong army to suppress the rebellion. And that strong army is the best target. Aya, whether it's you who want to restore your country, or I who want to find deeper treasures in the king's treasure house, this is a step that must be taken. Aya, go to your country. Chapter 295. My Country. Hearing Wang Lu's suggestion, Aya was somewhat absent-minded. Go back now. Hey, don't look like an ugly daughter-in-law who doesn't dare to see her parents-in-law. Although you have an A cup, isn't your face very beautiful? Moreover, you should be mentally prepared. Sooner or later, you will have to return to your country. Aya said, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. I'm not ready. Damn, are you a big girl going to get a room? Why are you still preparing? You're the Night King, okay? More than 100 years ago, you pulled out the stone sword that symbolized the royal power and ruled the country with the posture of a slender girl. At that time, you didn't have stage fright, but now you're afraid? No, I just don't know how to face all of this. Aya looked gloomy and lowered her head. I have done too many things wrong. Wang Lu anxiously said, if you have done something wrong, then apologize. If you apologize, then show your chest. No, do you still need to ask how to face all of this? Of course, it's to take revenge for everyone, and then strive to restore the country for everyone's happiness. Everything has to look forward. Moreover, don't forget what I said, as long as the country is not restored, there will be no King Pill. How long are you going to let me stay in Shudon stage? Listen, the restoration of the country is now led by me. You know your own situation. In addition to your swordsmanship, you are a wastrel who indulges in the past. It's impossible to expect you to do anything by yourself. You can't even cook well. Hey! Aya trembled with anger. If you're not convinced, then prove it to me. Prove that you can cook, or prove that you are a warrior who dares to face the reality. I think the latter is easier. In short, your country, you lead the way. Wang Lu unquestionably said, then whistled to summon the nightmare carriage and opened the door. Get in. Aya's country was located in the west of the central part of the western continent. It was a rich and beautiful land called Bretonia. The so-called Bretonia originally referred to the land of the Breton dragon clan. A long time ago, a large number of dragons lived in this fertile land. Later, along with the prosperity of the human clan, the dragons gradually hid behind the scenes, playing the role of a guide and a well-wishers. At the same time, with the frequent exchanges between the two races, the bloodline of the dragon race was gradually passed down, relying on the astonishing reproductive ability of the human race to develop and strengthen. The Breton dragon clan no longer referred to the ancient dragon clan, but more to humans with dragon clan bloodline. In fact, it had been a long time since anyone had seen a pure-blooded dragon. The inheritance of Breton dragon clan's bloodline, like the majority of the bloodline inheritance in the Western continent, did not fully comply with the common sense of human beings. When two people with powerful bloodlines combined, the offspring might only show a few characteristics of the dragon clan's bloodline. On the other hand, two almost mortal blood descendants could give birth to a powerful descendant. Of course, if they did not contain the dragon clan's bloodline at all, then no matter what, it would be impossible to give birth to a dragon clan bloodline. At the same time, those with powerful bloodlines would have a higher probability of having powerful descendants. The most outstanding among all the blood descendants became the Breton king. The previous king was Aya. Inheriting the purest dragon clan bloodline, she showed amazing talent at a young age. Even before her bloodline fully matured, she was already close to the legendary level. Of course, there was Aya's own efforts, but the strength of the Breton dragon clan's bloodline could also be seen. The group of people chatted on the road. When it came to bloodline, Aya couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The situation in the Western continent is very different from your 9 regions. Here, the influence of bloodline accounts for the majority. With bloodline, you are a profession, and from then on, you can be aloof. Because even if you're just a beginner profession, you're still a profession. Moreover, with bloodline, your status is no less than an ordinary aristocrat. Here, there are no geniuses from humble origins, and there is no artificial spirit root that can change the fate of mortals. Without bloodline, you're just a mortal, mediocre for life. Wang Lu thought for a moment. You can give birth to the offspring of a profession by mating with a profession, and then change the fate of the mother by virtue of the son. The bloodline born from the union of a mortal and a profession is very weak. Even worse than the mixed spirit root and waste spirit root of your 9 regions. You need to invest a lot of resources in order to have a little bit of effect. The possibility of giving birth to a good heir is very low. Then use quantity to overwhelm everything. Try a few more times and you'll eventually succeed. Aya was silent for a long time. You're right, on our side, the life of a profession was indeed. Until people found out that having too many illegitimate children was not helpful to change their situation. And this upsurge gradually cooled down. In short, the situation here is very different. You should carefully read the advanced instruction manual that I gave you before. This continent is very complicated, and even I, the Night King, dare not say how much I know about it. You can't understand the truth just by relying on the written records that have spread to 9 regions. Wang Lu nodded and pointed at the bustling place in front of them. Here we are. Golden Flash Town is in front of us. Golden Flash Town was Aya's designated first stop in Bretonia. During Aya's reign, it was one of the most prosperous towns in the country. In addition to the local precious ore, the most important thing was that Golden Flash Town was the burial place of the former Dragon King of Breton Dragon Clan, Golden Flash Dragon. According to legend, the god-level creature gave its life's essence to this place, and Golden Flash Town also had a lot of Dragon Clan bloodline. Wait a minute. Don't you think there's something wrong with your description? His life's essence was spread here, so there are a lot of Dragon Clan bloodline. May I ask, how did Golden Flash Dragon spread his essence? Can you describe it in detail? Aya helplessly stared at Wang Lu, and then explained, when I was in power, Golden Flash Town was the famous hometown of Dragon Clan. 1/10 of the Middle Order Knights under my command came from Golden Flash Town. If Holy Light religion is really targeting the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, this place must be an important battlefield. Wang Lu said right now, it looks quite peaceful. There are no people in misery and there are no ruins everywhere. I also hope that the so-called purification war is just nonsense. Aya said, but she shook her head. But there's no point in deceiving others and ourselves. Holy Light religion, unless they're really colluding with evil spirits, would not put everything in the light. They would not easily carry out a massacre against ordinary people. Moreover, I feel that under the calm appearance of this Golden Flash Town, there's a big crisis. In short, let's go and see it first. Do we need to use illusion to hide our identity? Is there any trouble in using the appearance of a 9 regions person here? Wang Lu suggested. Your illusion? Forget it. Aya showed a look of lingering fear, as if she remembered the unbearable past. There's no need to be so troublesome. Golden Flash Town is an open place for communication. When I was in power, there were some scholars from 9 regions who came to explore the secret of Golden Flash Dragon. Your existence will not attract too much attention. Really? Before I came out of the mountain, I learned a brilliant illusion from 6th Uncle, which can pass off as genuine. No need. At the same time, in the holy land of Holy Light religion, Taba City, deep in the king's treasure house, a priest in a platinum robe slowly opened his eyes. The remnant of Breton Dragon Clan? Interesting, there's actually such a powerful blood descendant here. Is the purification war not thorough enough? After a pause, the priest closed his eyes and then opened them again. 9 regions cultivator? At such a young age, you've mastered the law transformation. You should be a genius disciple of a big sect, right? Unfortunately, you still have to die here. 999 roses. Don't even think about coming out within 5,000 years. And in this world, who can live for 5,000 years? 9 regions cultivators are indeed long-lived, but after a long time, they will turn into a handful of dust. Humph, I have to thank the time distortion of this treasure house, which allows me to experience the passage of thousands of years in a short time. The last time I used this trick to deal with the heresy, what did they do? It seems that in the 70th year, they begged for my forgiveness at all costs. Then in the 73rd year, they committed suicide in despair. Heh, living alone in an absolutely dead space is more painful than any torture in the world. Those dwarf flute players from the Plateau Mountain, who are known to have a mind of steel, could only endure for a few decades. What can these Eastern cultivators do? I heard that they are good at cultivating their mind. Perhaps they can let me play this game a bit longer. How about we take a look at their current performance? Have they understood the secret of the rose? Perhaps I can give them a hint, so that they will be more desperate. After saying that, the priest closed his eyes again. His figure became erratic and gradually merged with the space around him. His consciousness sank into the thousands of independent spaces in the king's treasure house and quickly locked on one of them. This was one of the abilities that was given to him as an administrator. However, just as he entered the 5th level of the imprisoned space, the priest heard a burst of laughter that shocked him. Ha ha ha, holy light religion fools really think that they can trap us forever with this trick. What a fantasy! What a fantasy! Isn't it just 999 middle-order professions? My 3 junior sisters, from now on, let's work hard to procreate, and then let our children receive the most orthodox training to become middle-order professions. In this way, in 333 years, we can get out of here. Boom! The priest felt as if someone threw a powder keg into his brain, and his 3 views were shattered in the fire. Work hard to procreate? 333 years? Does this guy want to? Come on, junior sisters. Senior brother's stick is already unbearably hungry. Ha ha ha. But we can't let that perverted administrator see our good deed. While speaking, the priest saw a pink mist spread out in front of him, and his field of vision was unexpectedly sealed, unable to see through the mist. However, he didn't need to look. Through the bursts of heart-shaking, seemingly painful yet joyful women's moans, how could the priest not know what they were doing? This is simply outrageous. The priest trembled with anger. What kind of place do you think the sacred Golden King's treasure house is? I want to send down divine punishment, so that their souls fly away and scatter. Wait a minute. This is exactly what they want. They want to use this trick to lure me to take action and pass the test ahead of time. The basic rules of the king's treasure house cannot be changed. I have used 999 roses to set up the most rigorous test. If there is an additional test, they will be directly sent to the 6th floor. No, I must restrain myself. At this time, the laughter of the young cultivator came from the space. Ha ha ha, junior sisters, senior brother has just calculated wrongly. Why would it take 300 years? As long as we diligently practice the yin and yang unity method, we can give birth to daughters, and then I will be a good ghost father so that all of them will be pregnant with my children. At most, it will only take 20 years or so to get out of here. It would be even better if we have multiple births. Ha ha ha. You all have to die. At the same time, in the depths of the treasure house, a golden shadow couldn't help but spit. This damn bastard, what kind of shameful illusion did he leave behind? They dare to defile my treasure house. They can't be redeemed even if they die 10,000 times. Chapter 296. Stop, tell me who you are. Outside Golden Flash Town, Wang Lu and his party were blocked by the guards. 2 guards, dressed in light armor and armed with spears, crossed their weapons in front of the carriage. Although in front of the nightmare beast, the obstruction of the 2 mortal guards was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. However, the guards' posture was extremely firm. Humph, they haven't lost their former spirit. Inside the carriage, Aya secretly nodded. The people of the Night King should inherit the spirit of the night, humble but not inferior. Even in the face of an opponent that was far above them, they should still maintain their posture. Now it seemed that although the kingdom of the night had perished, the spirit of the night had still been passed down. Ridiculous! In this regard, Wang Lu just shook his head and then got off the carriage and came to the guards. You too. We are loitering scholars from the eastern city-states. Wang Lu said in a proficient Western continent language. We are not suspicious people. The guards were still vigilant. Do you have any documents to prove your identity? Like many countries in 9 regions, when people migrated, they needed to prove their identity. Some countries in the Western continent also had similar regulations, especially in the countries under the rule of Holy Light religion. People like Wang Lu and his party, who came from the 9 regions, had to be doubly vigilant. This was the duty of the guards. Even if Wang Lu and his party were obviously extraordinary, they were no exception. Wang Lu smiled. Documents? Of course. With that, Wang Lu took out a cloth bag from his waist, which made a jingling sound. Please check it carefully. The documents are absolutely reliable. Hey. Aya was surprised. Are you trying to bribe them? Don't make fun of me, they can't. Before her voice fell, she heard the 2 guards chuckle and said, I understand, they are indeed not suspicious people. Please come in. Then, without any obstruction, the carriage went straight into Golden Flash Town. When Wang Lu got on the carriage, he smiled at the sluggish Aya and said, "Ha ha ha, it seems that some spirits are more ancient than the spirit of the night." Aya somewhat unwillingly said, This is just an individual phenomenon. I believe in my people. I believe in chivalry." Wang Lu shrugged. "Well, you still believe in love and Santa Claus, right? Although I don't know what Santa Claus is, what's wrong with believing in love?" Wang Lu sneered and then snapped his fingers at Lu Li. "Junior sister, tell her." While eating the flour cake, Lu Li said, "Senior brother taught me that love comes and goes quickly, only pork roll is eternal." "What the hell are you teaching?" During the dispute, the carriage had already entered the center of the town. Gold's Higher Town was a place of frequent exchanges. There were many inns in the town, but they still could not meet the needs of the large influx of tourists. Along the way, most of the inns were overcrowded. Considering that his identity was sensitive, under Aya's guidance, Wang Lu went straight to a secluded inn. It's been so long, but this inn is still operating. When the carriage approached the inn, Aya sighed softly. It's really nostalgic. A long time ago, when I was patrolling Gold's Higher Town, I lived here for a short time. Although this inn is inconspicuous, and almost no one would come to stay, it's actually run by an aristocratic family. The environment is quite comfortable, and the service is also very considerate. However, when they arrived at the entrance of the inn, Aya was surprised to find that there were already a lot of people gathered there. Most of them were luxuriously dressed, and many of them revealed a strong professional aura. "I'm sorry, the inn is full. I really can't entertain more people. Please go back." At the door, a 13 or 14-year-old girl with bright eyes was politely rejecting the guests with an apologetic expression. "Are you blind? Our master is the only son of the Grand Boulder City's registrar. How dare you neglect him?" So that's how it is. I'll explain the situation to the guest who just checked in and let him give you the room. Okay? Humph, at least you know what's good for you. Yes. The guests just now claim to be the family of the city lord of the Red Scale City. I believe that since they are the city lord, they should be understanding of your difficulties. I will go and talk to them now. Wait a minute. The city master of the Red Scale City. Then we don't need to. The group of people were dispirited. After sending away the only son of the registrar, the little girl gently sighed, stood at the entrance, swept the crowd that was still gathered and shouted, "My house is full, there's no use for you to stay here. Or do you want me to discuss with the guests who have already checked in and give up the room? The easiest person to talk to is the city master. Do you want me to talk to him?" The easiest person to talk to is the city master? Although the Red Scale City could only be regarded as a third-tier city in Bretonia, it was still the city master. Hearing this, the crowd finally began to disperse, apparently realizing that it was meaningless to be entangled. In the carriage, Wang Lu turned to look at Aya. Aya looked at the capable little girl with emotion. She's exactly the same as her ancestors. In those days, the one who received me was also such a little girl. However, there weren't so many guests at that time. Wang Lu also frowned. There are indeed too many people in this town. On the way here, he noticed that the number of tourists in this town was unusually high. Inns, pubs, shops, and other places were crowded with people. The town was filled with a carnival atmosphere, as if they were celebrating a grand festival. "What should we do now?" Wang Lu pointed at the full inn. "I have something here, but I don't know if it can be used or not." Aya softly said, got off the carriage, and walked to the entrance of the inn. She arrived in front of the little girl and showed her a badge. The little girl revealed a puzzled look, and then her complexion changed. She looked at Aya up and down in surprise. It was just that, no matter how capable the little girl was, she couldn't see anything from Aya's young face. "What's wrong? Has it lost its effect?" Aya indifferently asked. No, please come in, please come in." The little girl quickly shook her head, stretched out her hand, and pushed open the door of the inn to let Aya in. A moment later, Aya came out with a face full of emotion, and in her hand was a golden key. The rules of this inn haven't changed, but the current owner is the 6th-generation descendant of that person. That little girl is his daughter. After 100 years, the badge issued by this inn is still valid. The inn has always reserved the best room for the holder of the badge. However, even the owner of the inn doesn't recognize me. After 100 years, Aya, your appearance is still the same. Of course, no one would dare to recognize you. You're not from the stars. Don't you people in the Western continent always grow old very fast? That's right, what's going on in this town? Why are there so many people? Aya said, just now, I heard from that little girl that Golden Flash Town is going to hold a talent selection ceremony. The Dragon City Master will come forward to preside over the selection. Once it is confirmed that the person has the potential to be an outstanding talent, he or she can go to Dragon City with the Master and join the Dragon City Guards. Dragon City is the oldest city in Bretonia. It has been the capital of many dynasties, but later it decayed and degenerated. When I was in power, the capital was moved to another place, and Dragon City was severely regulated. I scattered the 8 major legions of Dragon City and selected the elites to form the Dragon City Guards. At that time it was one of the most elite armies in the country. It has the most complete profession, as well as a systematic training method. From the entry level to the high level, the Dragon City Guards have a complete set of training methods. Now that 100 years have passed, the reputation of the Dragon City Guards seems to be higher than before. To be able to join the Dragon City Guards means infinitely better prospects, which attracted many people from the surrounding areas. That's why there are so many people in this town. This ceremony is held every 3 years, and it only started in the last 10 years, so I have never heard of it. So that's how it is. It's somewhat similar to the Immortal Gathering in Lingjian School. Wasn't the Spirit Creek town also such a scene? Aya said, it's just strange. After so many years, Bretonia has experienced earth-shaking changes. I remember that when the country perished, Dragon City was not spared and experienced a big storm. But after 100 years, Dragon City has completely restored its glory. Is it really because this ancient city has an unexpectedly strong vitality? Wang Lu said, therefore, let's just watch it quietly from the sidelines. After a pause, Wang Lu looked at the distant square of Golden Flash Town, where a thorough deployment has begun, ready to welcome the upcoming arrival of the Dragon City Master. I always feel that we will encounter a surprise. The group of people stayed in the inn. As Aya said, the inn left them the most upscale room, the inn owner's own room. During the stay of Aya and the others, the innkeeper's family moved to the villa on the outskirts of the town. During this period, the innkeeper's daughter was in charge of the room service, a 13 or 14 years old delicate and pretty girl. The girl was indeed worthy to be the descendant of an aristocratic family. Although she was young, her professional quality was already quite good. Every day, she would tidy up the room of Wang Lu and the others. Every detail revealed her attentiveness and consideration. Moreover, what was rare was that her cooking skill was not bad. Her 3 meals a day were often a pleasant surprise. In Bretonia, which was known as a gourmet land, her standard should be considered as first class. In just one day, Luli regarded her as a confidant. The girl's character was lively, and when she was tidying up the room, her mouth was usually busy. Unlike her ancestors who lived here for generations, she showed great curiosity about the outside world. Whenever she had free time, she would pester Wang Lu and the others to ask about the world outside Golden Flash Town, whether the eastern city-states were as prosperous and developed as rumored, and what was the magical thing about the mysterious eastern continent. Similarly, through the opportunity of chatting, Wang Lu also grasped the outline of what happened in Bretonia in recent years through this girl. In the past, after the fall of Aya's country, Bretonia was once divided into many vassal states. It was just that, the tangled warfare didn't last too long. 30 years ago, it was suppressed by a foreign force. The foreign force was, of course, Holy Light religion. During the reign of Aya, Bretonia pursued a local religion and was very vigilant against the infiltration of Holy Light religion. However, after the fall of Aya's country, Holy Light religion only took more than 10 years to sweep Bretonia and establish its authority among all the vassal states. Not to mention the drawbacks, it quickly ended the war and brought peace to this place. Today's Bretonia did not have a unified regime. The country was composed of hundreds of city-states, among which the most powerful was Dragon City. In addition to its own city, there were more than 30 cities as its vassal. And the relatively weak ones like Red Scale City were basically not worth mentioning. However, no matter how strong or weak these forces were, they were all under the rule and management of Holy Light religion. Although there was no unified regime, they had a common belief. In this regard, the little girl was quite dissatisfied. I hate those holy light religion people. I always feel that they have bad intentions toward the people of Bretonia. For example, this Dragon City Guard selection ceremony seems to be the appearance of the Dragon City Master, but in fact, it's the holy light religion selection. Therefore, I don't envy those who are selected. Hee hee, don't say these words to anyone. The little girl playfully smiled and stuck out her pink tongue. Wang Lu nodded and softly said, "Is it actually the holy light religion selection?" Chapter 297. Boom boom. Amidst the booming sounds of fireworks and cannons, Gold Flash Town ushered in a new day with noise. At the entrance of the town, the gorgeous fireworks and the golden dawn echoed from afar, injecting infinite vitality into the town with a dazzling brilliance. In the early morning, the town was already a boiling cauldron of voices. The streets, shops, and everywhere were crowded with people. This day was the carnival day in Golden Flash Town that only happened once every 3 years, the Dragon City Guard selection ceremony. As the most powerful city in Bretonia, Dragon City Guard was basically equivalent to the most powerful force in Bretonia. In addition to internal recommendation, there was basically only one way for Dragon City Guard to recruit from the outside. However, it was unknown why such an important ceremony was held in Golden Flash Town instead of Dragon City itself. Perhaps it was because Golden Flash Town was the famous cradle of Bretonia since ancient times. Or perhaps it was because Golden Flash Town's geographical location was superior, accessible in all directions. But in short, for Golden Flash Town, this was a rare opportunity, so naturally, it must be firmly grasped. From early morning, the town entered into a carnival. When the sun gradually rose, the atmosphere slightly cooled down, because the big shots from Dragon City were about to arrive. When it was close to noon, from the distant horizon, a huge shadow rolled down like a dark cloud. The shadow rapidly expanded in people's field of vision, and before long, someone in the town exclaimed, "It's a dragon." It was the symbol of Dragon City, the dragon at the pinnacle of all living creatures. A faint dragons might had already suppressed them from several miles away, making the townspeople feel a bit short of breath. However, when the dragon flew closer, the dragon's might converged a lot. Because beside the dragon, several platinum lights slowly bloomed, covering the dragon's figure. That rich holy aura made people involuntarily have the urge to prostrate themselves in worship. Hey, sure enough, it's holy light religion. In the inn, Wang Lu coldly smiled. I roughly understand what's going on with this Dragon City Guard selection ceremony. Aya's face was somewhat gloomy. Her green eyes stared straight at the dragon's figure that was sandwiched between several holy lights in the distance, and then gently shook her head. Dragon City. Shouldn't be like this. A moment later, the dragon arrived at Gold Flash Town. After circling around the town square, it began to slowly descend. As it descended, the dragon's figure rapidly shrank and gradually turned into a human form. It was a dignified middle-aged man who looked to be in his 30s or 40s. He had a tall figure and a mighty aura, causing others to be unable to help but want to submit to him. When he landed, the townspeople closest to the central square even knelt down involuntarily. Xueqi, what a powerful aura of dominance. In the distance, Wang Lu was looking at the square from the roof of the inn. Sensing the faint pressure from the middle-aged man, he estimated that the man's level was between the senior rank and the legendary rank, which was around the divinity transformation stage. Such a powerhouse could crush Gold Flash Town to the ground with just a thought. Now, he only made a circle of people kneel, which should be the result of extreme restraint. Aya, do you know him? Aya's voice was a bit low. He is the Dragon City Master, Bedivere. After a pause, she continued. He was 100 years ago. But at that time, it was impossible for him to tolerate such an offense. Wang Lu let out an "oh" sound to express his understanding. Because right next to the Dragon City Master, there were 3 white-robed holy light priests standing in a circle. It would be too far-fetched to say that they were serving the Dragon City Master, but it was more like monitoring and controlling. However, in fact, the 3 holy light priests were just at the beginning of the senior rank. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they still couldn't contend against the deity transformation stage powerhouse like the Dragon City Master. Obviously, it was Dragon City Master Bedivere who had abandoned himself. If it was Aya, even if she was only in the King Pill stage, She would still dare to go against 3 deity transformation stage powerhouses. Of course, that was why her country perished. Because of the existence of Bedivere, it was inconvenient for Aya to show herself, so she quietly waited in the inn. Wang Lu was curious about the Dragon City Guard selection ceremony, so he took Lu Li and the others to the square. When they arrived at the square, the selection ceremony had already begun. Bedivere didn't like to waste time. After making a simple opening speech, he reached out and pulled out a high platform from the square and put a crystal ball on it. Next, those who have confidence in themselves can come on the stage and drip their blood on the crystal ball. If the appraisal result is qualified, then you can join the Dragon City Guard. After a simple explanation last night, Bedivere turned around and went down the stage. 2 white-robed priests stayed on the stage to preside over the appraisal, and another priest always followed Bedivere. This was not the first time for the Dragon City Guard selection ceremony, so most of the people in Golden Flash Town were familiar with this procedure. Soon, a young man confidently came on the stage, bit his finger, and dripped his blood on the crystal ball. The crystal ball flashed for a while and finally stopped on the green color. The young man froze for a moment, and then looked at the 2 priests with expectant eyes. "Go down," one of the priests coldly said. The young man's face paled. But I have the bloodline. A green excellent level bloodline is not qualified to become a Dragon City Guard. Go find a job elsewhere. Go down. With that, the priest reached out his hand and pushed forward, and the young man staggered and fell off the stage. The people below began to talk. Alas, even the excellent level bloodline is not qualified to join. The threshold of Dragon City Guard is really high. I'm afraid even the Holy Knights of Holy Light Religion are just so. Yes, in other places, let alone green level bloodline, even white level bloodline is enough for the general city lord to cultivate. And even the worst gray level bloodline, at least it means that you can become a professional. How could you be like this, thrown down like garbage? Yes, in some cities, the city lord's guard captain only has excellent level bloodline. Being a Dragon City Guard is really not easy. While speaking, another brawny man jumped on the stage to be appraised. That brawny man's whole body exuded an extremely dangerous aura. His strength was quite powerful, and the crystal ball also showed a dark blue color. A near rare level bloodline, not bad. It's a defensive type bloodline that leans towards the shield warrior route, which is even rarer. The white-robed priest nodded. Unfortunately, Dragon City Guard does not lack shield warriors. Go down. That brawny man was inexplicably surprised. Go down? Before he could finish his words, the white-robed priest stretched out his hand and pushed the brawny man down without any ability to resist. After all, although his potential was excellent, and his strength was formidable, in front of a high-order profession, he was still vulnerable. However, after that brawny man was knocked down from the platform, he was soon surrounded by several luxuriously dressed aristocrats, who tried to draw him into their own force. The selection of Dragon City Guard was very strict. Those who were eliminated were not necessarily weak, but perhaps Dragon City didn't need them. But for other people, those who were eliminated were still an incomparably precious resource. Generally speaking, only bluish-purple bloodline, which is close to epic-level bloodline, can join Dragon City Guard. But, how could bluish-purple bloodline be so common? I have lived in Golden Flash Town for decades and witnessed every selection ceremony. So far, bluish-purple bloodline has only appeared less than 10 times. Every time it appears, it would greatly shock the people of Dragon City. A gray-haired Golden Flash Town resident sighed with emotion. Excuse me, have there been any Breton Dragon Clan bloodline in these years? A young voice sounded in the old man's ear. The old man turned around and saw a strange face. Hello, I am a scholar from 9 regions. I would like to learn about the customs of this place. The young man faintly smiled. His smile contained a special power, which made the old man unconsciously relax his vigilance. Breton Dragon Clan bloodline? The old man stroked his beard and said with a proud tone, Of course there have been many times. After all, this is Bretonia. This Breton Dragon Clan bloodline, no matter how thin it is at least green, usually blue or even purple. Moreover, its real value is much higher than other bloodlines of the same level. I have experienced 15 selection ceremonies. Every time a Breton Dragon Clan bloodline appears, The Dragon City priest will give them the highest standard of treatment and entertain them alone. Hee hee, that's the pride of our Bretonia people. Entertain them alone? I understand, thank you. One by one, the challengers went on stage and came down from the platform. Time quickly slipped away. It seemed like not long, but half a day had passed. The sun had gradually set in the west, and the platform on the square pulled out a long shadow. After half a day, a lot of people with excellent bloodline had been selected. Altogether, there were more than 20 people who met the standard of Dragon City. Among them, there were 3 people from Golden Flash Town, and one of them had Bretonia's Dragon Clan bloodline, which was quite a good result. After all, most of the people in Bretonia, and even outside Bretonia, had heard about the reputation of the selection ceremony. As the sun set, the people in Golden Flash Town gradually dispersed. Most of those who failed in the challenge left with their followers. As for those who came to watch the excitement, they felt that the ceremony was almost over, and there was nothing left to see. Dragon City Master Bedivere quietly waited on the platform for a while. It had been some time since the last challenger left, and there were no newcomers on stage. He turned around and said, "It's almost over, right?" Over? With just these people, how could it be over? Bedivere wrinkled his thick eyebrows. 23 people. Is that not enough? The white-robed priest gave him a deep look. You know what I'm talking about. There's already one person. Still not enough? Do you think we don't know about your private little tricks? The priest said and then turned his eyes to the area below the platform. There are a lot of people who are supposed to come up here, but they haven't. Bedivere coldly snorted. The Dragon City Guard recruitment is not a forced recruitment. Those who don't want to come up, do you think we can force them? The priest said, of course we can't force them, but we can tempt them. With that, he spread out his palm with a grim smile. Suddenly, a rich fragrance wafted out. Bedivere's body trembled. This is ambergris? Humph, yes, it's the irresistible temptation of Breton Dragon Clan. I knew you wouldn't do things honestly, so I deliberately brought it here. I want to see how many people with Dragon Clan bloodline still haven't shown up. You? You want to fight? Please, with your strength. Killing the 3 of us is indeed easy. Bedivere gritted his teeth, but in the end, he didn't take any action. The priest then ignited the ambergris with holy light, and the subtle fragrance quickly spread to every corner of Golden Flash Town. A moment later, the priest on the platform was satisfied to see several townspeople who seemed to have lost their wits and came here. He inwardly thought that this priceless treasure was really not wasted. Although it was hard to avoid the suspicion of killing the goose that laid the golden eggs, this time's harvest was so much that it was still a profit. At the same time, Wang Lu, who had lost interest in the selection ceremony, returned to the inn to prepare his meal. However, he was surprised to see that the little girl in the kitchen was suddenly absent-minded. As if she had suffered a blow, her body slightly trembled, and the plate in her hand fell to the ground. Yet, she didn't even notice it and lightly walked outside, as if she was possessed by a ghost. Wang Lu felt strange. Nice, where are you going? As soon as his voice fell, Aya, who was next to Wang Lu, suddenly stood up. Chapter 298. The Holy Light Religion Priest stimulated the rare treasure ambergris. The strange fragrance quickly spread to every corner of Golden Flash Town, tempting a specific bloodline. Ambergris was a rare treasure invented by a genius alchemist by chance. According to legend, even the ancient dragons could not resist its temptation. As long as they smelled it, they would salivate and fall head over heels for it. Thus, it had the name ambergris. Legend has it that the purer the Dragon Clan bloodline, the stronger the temptation of ambergris. By taking out this piece of ambergris, the Holy Light Religion Priest basically wanted to catch all the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline in Golden Flash Town. At the same time, in an inn in the town, the fragrance of dinner permeated from the kitchen. Obviously, a sumptuous meal was about to be prepared. However, a moment later Nis, who was in charge of the dinner, gently trembled, and then under the astonished eyes of the crowd, she walked out of the inn absent-mindedly. Behind her, Aya followed her step by step, also absent-mindedly. Tisk, what's wrong with you two? In broad daylight, Wang Lu casually cast out a mind-cleansing spell. Although he was a sword cultivator, spellcasting was not his forte, but after cultivating for more than 10 years, he was already close to the King Pill realm. Thus, he could easily cast a simple spell, and the effect was no less than that of an elite from a common sect. However, after casting the mind-cleansing spell, Aya and Nis did not respond at all. Wang Lu was slightly stunned. How could this be? Even though he cast the spell in the Western continent, it was transformed by the law, so he didn't dare to say that the spell's effect was 100% certain, but it should not be completely ineffective. At least it should be effective on Nis. While thinking, Wang Lu got up and pressed Aya's shoulder. Unexpectedly, the girl's body slightly trembled, and a tremendous force like a stormy sea came crashing at him, throwing him far away. Don't block the way. Not until Aya's figure disappeared from the end of his field of vision did that impatient voice reach his ears. Is this woman crazy? Wang Lu was shocked and angry at the same time. He slapped the table and shouted at Lu Li and the others, "Don't just stand there, quickly chase after her." It didn't matter what was wrong with Aya and Nis. The important thing was that the Dragon City Master was outside the town, so Aya could not be seen at this time. Think about it. The Night King who should have died more than 100 years ago suddenly resurrected and reappeared in the land of Bretonia. How would the world react to this? Those who missed the era of the Night King would naturally rejoice, hoping that Aya could lead them to rebuild their country. But from another perspective, what about those who benefited from the collapse of Bretonia? For example, would Bedivere be happy when he saw Aya? For example, in the chaos of war, those who ruled over a city or a place, wouldn't they be worried that Aya would be added to their list after the restoration of their country? In particular, Holy Light Religion, the current de facto master of Bretonia. On one hand, they divided Bretonia, and on the other hand, they purified the dragon race bloodline. Their hostility toward Bretonia dragon race was beyond doubt. If they were to see Aya, the former dragon race king, what would happen? She would probably play the role of *** Aya. If he just let Aya run to her death in a daze, in a few years' time, who knows how many children she would already be the mother of? Well, in theory, the soul of the departed was infertile, but this was not the point. Two dead chefs stop. While calling out to Lu Li and Bai Shixian to make their move, Wang Lu's own movement was not slow. Using his imperial wind technique, he flew out of the inn. This place was crowded with people, so he didn't dare to casually use his original magical ability. However, as soon as he walked out of the inn, he couldn't help but secretly curse. Outside the inn, there happened to be a large group of people. All of them were defeated in the challenge on the high platform on the square, so they returned in low spirits. He didn't know what these people were thinking, but they actually took a detour to get out of the town. At this time, when they bumped into each other, Wang Lu's momentum suddenly stagnated. And with that, the opportunity slipped away forever. Because when Wang Lu and the others were blocked by the crowd, they had to stop. Aya and Nis, hand in hand, have rounded a corner and went straight to the square. Golden Flash Town was not big. The high platform on the square overlooked all four directions, so the field of vision was excellent. Their figures have already appeared in the line of sight of Bedivere and the others. If they tried to stop them again, they would inevitably be discovered by the other party. Wang Lu reluctantly slowed down his pace and signaled Bai Shixian and Lu Li not to pursue anymore. Looking at the receding figure of Aya and Nis, Wang Lu sighed and thought that he could only act according to the circumstances. M456. Oh, and there are two over there. There are actually 8 resuscitation Breton Dragon Clan bloodline. What an unexpected surprise. The priest holding the ambergris beamed with joy. This time, the harvest was so rich that when they returned to Dragon City, they would certainly be rewarded by the Archbishop. Every 3 years, they recruited Dragon City guards, and their real purpose was still the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline. Golden Flash Town was blessed by the legendary Dragon Clan, so the probability of giving birth to Dragon Clan bloodline was particularly high. As long as one was a native of Bretonia, after living here for a long time, it was possible to give birth to an awakened Dragon Clan bloodline, which was the real promised land. Therefore, every 3 years, Holy Light Religion would recruit Dragon Clan guards in the name of Dragon City and secretly collect Dragon Clan bloodline. For decades, the harvest was quite abundant. However, in recent times, the harvest had become increasingly scarce. He suspected that Bedivere was the one who set up obstacles and released all kinds of rumors that were not favorable to Holy Light Religion and Dragon City, making those Dragon Clan bloodline unwilling to accept the recruitment. After all, the church's purification of Breton Dragon Clan wasn't done with great fanfare, so some things couldn't be done too blatantly. However, at present, his suspicion of Bedivere was only limited to suspicion, and there was no evidence to prove it. Not to mention with Bedivere's identity, even if there was evidence, it couldn't do anything to him. Therefore, he simply bypassed Bedivere and used the ambergris to lure out the Dragon Clan bloodline. In this way, even if Bedivere was unwilling, he could only accept his fate. Very good, very good. Plus the previous one, there are 9 Dragon Clan bloodline. I wonder how many of them are true Dragon Clan bloodline. Breton Dragon Clan bloodline was also divided into grades. The lowest grade was green, the more common was blue, and the best was purple epic. Moreover, the power of the Breton Dragon Clan bloodline was far above its color grade. The higher the bloodline rank of these recruited Dragon Clan bloodline descendants, the greater the credit they would receive. And according to the previous experience, among these 9 people, there should be 1 or 2 purple epic bloodlines. Before long, the first person who was lured by the ambergris climbed the platform. It was a sturdy young man. Many people in Golden Flash Town recognized him. He was the blacksmith's son. This year, he was only 13 years old, but his body was more robust than an adult. Moreover, in recent years, his body had skyrocketed. Many of the well-informed townspeople suspected that he had awakened some extraordinary bloodline. The blacksmith's son absent-mindedly walked on the platform, and then inexplicably bit his finger and dripped his blood on the crystal bowl, which bloomed with dark blue light. Then he was pulled to the side by the priest and stood there in a daze. The second person to come on stage was a delicate and pretty girl. She was the most skillful tailor in the village. With her pair of skillful hands, she could weave exquisite fabrics that were no less than those produced in the eastern 9 regions. At this time, she was also attracted by the ambergris and dripped her blood on the crystal ball, which bloomed with almost purple light. Good, close to epic level bloodline. Moreover, its skill-sensitive type, quite rare, no less than a real purple epic. This time, I've picked up a treasure. The priest snickered and gave the ambergris in his palm to the girl. The girl held the ambergris and seemed to be intoxicated. Before long, several Breton Dragon Clan bloodline came on stage to be identified. Without exception, all of them had blue and purple bloodline. There was even one who was infinitely close to epic level bloodline, which made the several priests smile from ear to ear. At this time, the farthest away in girl Nice finally came to the front of the stage. She dripped her blood on the crystal ball, which bloomed with a dazzling purple light. Is this a genuine epic bloodline? The 3 priests were stunned for a moment, and then simultaneously looked at Nice. Breton Dragon Clan bloodline was very rare, and its real value was far above ordinary bloodline. Therefore, the conditions for its production were also very harsh. Blue and purple or even infinitely close to purple bloodline were still fine, but a real pure purple bloodline was very rare. Nice pure purple bloodline at least meant that her ancestors were by no means simple. The several priests looked at each other and thought that after this conscription, they must find time to investigate the secret behind this girl. So, is it my turn? The priest's thoughts were interrupted by a clear woman's voice. On the stage, the blonde Aya faintly smiled. After all, she was once the Night King. Although as the former Dragon King, she was the most heavily affected by the ambergris, but in fact, not long after she went out, she had already regained her sobriety. However, at that time, she was already in the sight of Bedivere and the Holy Light priests, so there was no way for her to retreat. Therefore, she simply calmly walked to the stage and looked at Bedivere. Bedivere slightly frowned, as if he was lost in thought. However, he didn't seem to recognize the king that he once served. Hearing Aya's question, he just nodded blankly. Drop your blood on it. Aya gently took a breath, and then dropped a drop of blood on her fingertip on the crystal ball. Suddenly, a dazzling purple light flashed on the stage. The 3 priests were still immersed in the shock brought by Nice, but when they saw Aya's purple light, their eyes widened and they were speechless. Although they were both purple, there was a big difference between the epic-level bloodline. Nice was just an ordinary epic-level bloodline, but the pure purple light that bloomed from Aya meant that she had a high-grade epic bloodline. Even in the era of the Night King, it was enough to rank among the best of the Knights of the Round Table. Of course, they didn't know that this was the result of Aya's deliberate suppression of her bloodline. After all, she was, a spirit of the brave departed. Moreover, after the fall of her country, she lost the most important attribute of the king, so her bloodline level had dropped, which was why it was only purple level. Otherwise, you. One of the priests swallowed his saliva with difficulty, not knowing what to say. At this time, all he could think about was what kind of reward he would get when he returned to Dragon City. While the priests were silent, Bedivere took a step forward and asked in a sinking voice, "Who exactly are you?" Aya revealed a blank expression. Me. I don't know. I just accompanied my friend to Golden Flash Town to study. I don't know why, but just now, my heart was moved, and I wanted to come here to be identified. Who are your father and mother? Galahad? Gawain? Geraint? Bedivere directly interrupted Aya's words. Step by step, he pressed forward, and his eyes hid an astonishing flame. Aya was tongue-tied. I don't know. They left when I was very young, and I never saw them again. Describe their appearance. You should at least remember this. Bedivere was particularly anxious. Aya said, yes, my father is, and my mother is. Then, Aya vividly described the image of a man and a woman. From time to time, Bedivere asked questions. His questions were so oppressive that the three holy light priests didn't dare to interrupt him. After a long time, Bedivere sighed with a tired face. It turns out to be the descendant of Galahad. No wonder you have such a pure bloodline. Unfortunately, you really shouldn't come here. Aya blinked her eyes. You know my father? But he doesn't seem to be called Galahad. Bedivere sighed again. No need to say any more. That era has passed forever. After that, Bedivere slowly walked down the platform. His back was particularly heavy. Obviously, he didn't want to deal with this matter anymore. The three priests looked at each other in dismay. Descendant of Galahad? One of the most famous knights of the Round Table under the Night King? No wonder she has a pure purple level bloodline. This time, they not only picked up a treasure, but also dug up a gold mine. If they followed this girl's background, perhaps they would be able to find a large number of remnants of the Knights of the Round Table. Aya didn't care about the calculations of the three priests. Her attention was always on Bedivere. Judging from his attitude just now, it seemed that a lot of things had happened in the past 100 years. And just at this time, a questioning voice suddenly rang in Aya's ear. Hey, who is Galahad? Wang Lu. Aya was taken aback. She didn't know when, but Wang Lu actually stood on the platform, followed by Shurxian, Lu Li, and Quan Zhihua. Unexpectedly, the whole army had gathered. What are you guys doing here? To collect your corpse. Wang Lu snappily glared at her, and then asked, Who is Galahad? Aya softly said, Galahad was a holy knight in the past. He survived the final war, but he has left the Western continent. No one can grasp his whereabouts. I lied that I'm his descendant, so no one could trace it down. Bedivere listened to your nonsense? He was your minister in the past. How could he not recognize his own lord? Aya hesitated for a moment. I told you before. I didn't shoulder the title of Night King with the image of a woman. My image at that time and now is very different. Moreover, the spirit of the brave departed also has its own special place, so it's normal for Bedivere not to recognize me. What the? That's possible? Is the lethality of an A cup really that strong? Sure enough, the story of Liang Shanhua and Zhu Yingtai has its real-life origin. What are you talking about? While Wang Lu and Aya were happily chatting, several priests sternly shouted, Who are you guys? What are you doing on the platform? Wang Lu smiled. Of course, we are the talented people who came to join Dragon City Guard. Don't look at our handsome men and pretty women, we are actually the real power. For example, look at me, I have the legendary noble bloodline. While saying that, Wang Lu cut his finger with his fingernail and dropped a drop of blood on the crystal ball. In any case, he couldn't run away, so he might as well go with Aya and sneak into Dragon City Guard first. At present, the bloodline purification of Holy Light religion has not been put on the surface, so there was still room for maneuver. Next, as long as he showed that his noble bloodline was not inferior to Aya's, he should be able to get the attention of Dragon City Guard, and then, while thinking, the crystal ball absorbed the drop of blood and burst into light. A dark and mottled light. Wang Lu was stunned, and so were the several priests on the opposite side. Everyone was stunned. Gray light. On this day, there were no less than 1,000 people who went on stage to be appraised. Their bloodlines were varied, from the pure purple Breton dragon clan bloodline to the mediocre white bloodline. Any kind of bloodline was not rare, but this gray bloodline was really rare. After a long time, a priest suppressed his anger and said, "You, get off the platform." Wang Lu was startled. Get off the platform? Gray, moreover, it's an impure mottled gray. This is the lowest level of garbage bloodline. If you don't get off the platform, do you want us to do it? While saying that, the priest stretched out his hand, ready to use the power of holy light to blast this inexplicable 9 regions bastard off the platform. Wang Lu anxiously said, "There must be some misunderstanding." With that, an immortal method bloomed on his fingertip, trying to emit orange light as a coverts. Damn. Garbage bloodline? What kind of play is this? You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.